Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, my name is Dave Scott, and yes, I am Area 51 for 1 year from today. Yeah, I'm Area 51, and I'm loving it. You know, on my birthday, I get to have anybody I want on this show, so I brought some of my favorite people. My hero, my mentor, Grant Cameron will be here. Nicole Sackage is going to be here, and Dirty Filth is drawing the cartoons tonight. Let's say hello to each and every one of you. We got Race Fan in the gold medal position, Tim Mothman in his goatee sharing a silver, CJ Barry with a bronze medal tonight, Buckethead the Soothsayer, thank you very much for the birthday love. Hi, Kathy Evans, and who else do we have? Eric Austin, thank you for the love right back. We very much appreciate it. Lex Diaz and Cosmic Joe, Melvin from Mars, Eternity Eternal. Deidre, how are you? It's good to see you all. Hi, JSCO, Y2K, Brown Dwarf, Robert Lamoth. Good to have you all here. One more quarter. Welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Luscious Jules. Dave Walters, thank you for coming on in. I did have my ice cream cake tonight. I totally did. I actually still got some on my shirt. I just didn't feel like changing my shirt. Kathleen Hughes is here. Kathleen Hughes will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. T-Bone, my man, thank you for the birthday wishes. Hi, Pam Harris, thank you as well. Human Carl is our favorite veteran around here. Yes, thank you for your service, Human Carl. We love you. Absolutely love you. Tim in the Backwoods and Mama Catherine. There she is. Mwah! I love you, Mama Catherine. You are the best. Totally the best. Paramarv, thank you for coming on in. Thomas Rock, appreciate it. And who else we got? Thomas Fessler. Oh, wow, dude. You didn't have to go this far. It's my happy birthday. Happy birthday. Thank you very much, my man. Very much appreciate the love and support. And thank you very, very much. I love your show, Disclosure, tonight. I do watch it when you're on. Sad that you're down to 3 days a week, but you know what? You're still doing a kick-ass job. Thank you. All right, Lex Diaz, how you doing? Scrolling on down. And who's next here? We have number 16 in your program, starting at right defense from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Jansson. He's got 58 points during the regular season, but just 2 in the playoffs. He's got to pick it up a little bit. Got to pick it up. All right, continuing on, Les Paul Holland, strumming away in Australia. Thank you very much, my man, for doing that. And who else do we have here? Well, let's see here. Let's see. Who's next? Les Paul Holland. W. Decker, thank you for coming on in, and thank you for that awesome super chat. Very much appreciate your love and support. Got to speed it up here. Troy SR71, Carrot in the Woo Train. Good to see you. Chill Farm, thank you for that awesome super chat from the birthday. Very much appreciate it. Thank you very much. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. All right, we got Deer Slayer, the Lone Wanderer. How you guys doing? The Michael Leger. I did get your present today, my man. Thank you very much. It means the world to me again. I forgot it in my vehicle. That's why it's not on me right now, but I promise you it'll hang right from the microphone here. JSCO, Skip to Malou, good morning. Bolenia, my man. Deanna Ann, welcome to SOR Chat. How you doing? Al Garay on Twitch, just bench press 400 pounds 51 times for my birthday. Thank you. Pixie Lara, thank you for that awesome super chat. Very much appreciate your love and support. And Bright. Well, thank you and welcome. Thank you for the super chat. Let's get the radio side going. Where's my mouse? Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Grant Cameron and Nicole Sackich are here for my birthday show. Why? Because I could have anybody I want on this show on my birthday. Yes. There's Bill WD-40 currently lubing us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. Thank you, Bill, for the extra lube on my birthday. Matthew Goodka, Rose Brooks, Stargazer, Pam Harris, Funkin' Hungry. Welcome to SOR Chat. Hi, The Ferret. How you doing? Hi, Science Melinda. Flat 6. How you doing? Lawana Murphy. Good to see you again. FU Zeddy and Operation Shutdown. Super Crazy. Boo the Beagle. Thanks for coming on in. And B, nice to see you. David Warman, good to have you back. Good morning in Scotland. Bobbert, nice to have you here. Hi, Mike Rivers. Fred Craven, welcome back. Do me a favor, everybody. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, hot stream live at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. You'll do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out the Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show of fun and excitement tonight. Grant Cameron, Nicole Sackich are here to talk some UFOs and a little bit of hockey because it's playoff time. And, you know, Grant's Canadian, I'm Canadian, and we're going to talk some puck. Why? Because we can. It's my birthday show, and we can definitely do that. Then in hour 3, you know what? We're just going to go. We're just going to go right through it. So let's not worry about anybody else. Why? I'm calling the shots on this one. No format. Just me, Grant Cameron, Nicole Sackich, and if you're watching on YouTube and Twitch, Dirty Filth, tearing it up with the great art. You know, I'm 51 today. I like to be called for the next year Dave Area 51. Why? Because I think it sounds a little badass for that. And considering I'm at that age now where it's like, get off my lawn and I can do what I want because I'm finally old enough to not care, I figured I want to be Dave Area 51. I can do that. I could feel the presence of it all happening. And on my birthday show, you know, I used to have a bunch of people come on in and, you know, we'd just have a good old time, but it got a little tedious and everything. So last year I said, you know what? Who would I really want on this show? If I could pick anybody in the world for my birthday show, who would it be? And it took me about 0.16 seconds to realize it's Grant Cameron. This man is my hero, my mentor, a fellow Canadian. He is, in my opinion, one of the top researchers, if not the top researcher in ufology. He is somebody who I met back in 2015. And the minute I met him, I was just in awe. I was in awe of his presence because, well, let's face it, it's Grant effing Cameron. That's the only reason why. And I am blessed today to be able to call Grant not only my hero and mentor, but one of my best friends in this field. He is a man who always takes my phone call. I can ask him anything from why the Winnipeg Jets are struggling to what is happening in ufology right now. And his prodigy is one of my best friends as well. Nicole Sackich and I literally talk every day. Every day we talk. And if we're not talking UFOs, we're talking hairstyle, because we're always competing to see who has nicer hair. But it's my birthday show. I wanted a good show. I'm bringing you guys in Radio Land and YouTube Land a great show tonight. So here they are. Grant Cameron, thank you for being such an important part of my life in this field of ufology. And Nicole Sackich, you're one of the best as well. And I love you. Thank you for coming here on my birthday show tonight.
I don't know what to say. I'm going to have to pull for the Edmonton Oilers after I heard that whole spiel there. Holy cow! How do you beat that?
Well, I meant it, and you know what, Grant? I think Nicole would 100% agree with me when I say this, but you are literally one of the greatest people in this field. I mean, you don't get too excited, you don't get too down, you know how to take your lumps like a good Canadian kid, but you keep on bouncing back like a pinball on a pinball machine. And you know what? Out of all of that, you're just a very nice, honest, humble human being. And I think the entire world, never mind the UFO world, but the entire world needs to get to know who you are more than what we do on a daily basis.
Holy cow.
And Nicole's holding up a Winnipeg Jets
my
coffee
goodness.
mug with some UFOs on there. And yep, the UFO boss.
Oh my goodness. Now she has to get a Edmonton Oilers one now for the playoffs.
Hey, we're gonna have to.
I'm only here for one thing, honestly, tonight.
Oh, good. Here comes Dave's present.
Happy birthday. So just pause for a second on all the hockey talk. All right. YouTube chat room. I apologize for my voice, but happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Ambassador Dave. Happy birthday to you.
Right on.
I even like that robotic sound that you have right now to go along with it. It sounds very alien.
Oh, no. Is my sound off?
Yeah, it's kind of wobbly.
Check. That's my nerves. And it's I sent in my clone replacement tonight.
I'm getting asked to show my ice cream stain on my T-shirt because every year I get a Dairy Queen ice cream cake, and I got red icing on my shirt here. So
you enjoyed it.
I did. You know what the coolest part about it was? My grandson is here. I wanted one gift this year, and that was for my daughter, my grandson, to come over because I haven't seen my grandson in like 9 months.
Wow.
And it just kills me because you get addicted to these little gaffers, and I gotta tell you, we pigged out on cake. He had like a rainbow of ice cream icing all over his face. We just dug into the cake. We didn't even bother cutting the ice cream cake. Just dig in. Let's just get the job done rather than wasting time trying to heat up a knife to cut through that cement. But
so how old is he?
He's a year and a half.
So but got another couple of years and he can start the hockey.
Yep. He's probably going to be skating next year, which is really cool. He's, Grandpa already got him skates, when he was literally, I think he was about, oh goodness, probably about 9 hours old before I raced to the sports store and bought him skates.
There you go.
Well,
I'll give you a little surprise.
Okay.
I may be moving to Vancouver to be with my grandson.
No way. That is a great surprise.
There you go. At three, I'll start the coaching and I'll get back to the old referee isn't fair. This is terrible. How they pick on the little 10-year-old kid who's reffing. You little sneaker, what are you doing? You're picking on the other guy. And it's like,
oh yeah,
I haven't done that for many years.
Oh, you never go wrong.
Did that fix it a little bit?
No, you're still a robot. Try
you go out and come back in.
What about this?
Try.
Okay, I'll be back.
Oh, yeah. You still sound good. It's kind of weird, though.
I'll jump out of the cake when I come back.
There you go.
All right. Appreciate it. When are you moving to Vancouver, Grant?
My son sold his house for $1 million, and now he's looking for a house for $1.5 million. And he's looking in the Pitt Meadows area, heading farther and farther out all the time because that Vancouver is like $2 million for a house. And I've actually got an analogy now. Like Vancouver, Vancouver's got $2 million for the average house in Vancouver. And then you can walk downtown Vancouver on the streets and you find people in cardboard boxes. And that's what the UFO field is like. You have the guys who have the $2 million, the billionaires who are running the show, and then us in the cardboard boxes, and they basically tell us, stay in your cardboard box, pay your bills and your taxes, and go to hell. We're not going to give you nothing because it's all controlled by the people with the $2 million houses.
Isn't that the truth? Well, you can always move to the Caribou where the UFO sightings are free.
Yeah, but you got 40 below there. I've had 40 below. I don't know 40 below.
It's only for like 3 weeks a year. It's only 3 weeks a year.
Yeah,
Grant, for people who may not know who you are, and that's I'm talking radio land, and as people still learn, how did you become one of the most genuine and most understood researchers in this field?
Well, I guess it starts with the shattering my reality that I had this sighting in 1975. I had no interest in UFOs. I only went out to this town to see what was going on, just to because people were reporting this thing was there all the time. And as I describe it, it was like buying a lottery ticket, and there's a chance you can win, but you're not going to win nothing. You're never going to see anything. Everybody else will see it. You're going to go out there and see nothing. And it was like I went out there and it was like, oh my God, there are miracles. Because it was like miracles happen in the Bible. They don't happen around here. That was the first paranormal thing I ever saw. It flew right in front of the car. I was absolutely floored. And the second night, it was the more important night. That's when it came at me and then sort of flew back where it came from. And then I sort of wondered, what's it doing? And I realized it wasn't really doing anything. It was just seemed to be there. And the coincidence that I happened to see this twice, very close up. And so my whole pursuit for my whole life was trying to figure out what the heck is going on. I really wasn't interested in sightings. People will do sky watches. I'm not interested in sky watches. I'm not interested in seeing an alien. I'm not interested in any of that kind of stuff. I'm just interested in what's going on. And I was like the little Canadian guy who, didn't have any, background, PhD degrees and stuff like that. And I figured someone had to know what was going on. So I spent my entire career for 50 years next May just trying to find out who knows what's going on here. And anybody that I think has got an inside track, who's been briefed, or who's had a sighting, who's talked to an alien, those are the people I talk to, because that's all I want to do is I want to figure out what the heck's really going on here.
That was known as Charlie Red Star, correct?
Yeah. And I just as I was coming on, you phoned me just before. I actually found, as you were phoning me, and I'm putting all my files. If people go to my Twitter, Grant Cameron at Twitter, you'll see I put a posting there tonight that I'm actually taking all my, because I had my death sentence a couple of years ago. I had 2 death sentences where I was told I was going to die. So I'm sort of on this path where I went to the University of Manitoba. I want to get my files put at the University of Manitoba because I've written 20 books. That's probably more than anybody at the University of Manitoba has ever written. And they basically told me to get lost. They weren't interested at all. So I decided I was really upset. So then I decided I'm going to put them online, which is actually the way you should do it. Because a lot of people are putting their files at Rice University, but nobody's going to go to Rice University to look at your files. So I'm putting them online. So if they go to my Twitter, they'll see a link that I've got. I'm down to 3 boxes. I had 12 boxes of files. I'm down to three boxes of files. I'm putting all my files online. You can actually go there. They're all scanned online. All my letters, I've sanitized nothing. I'm not even reading this stuff. I'm just trying to get it all done before I move or before I die, because I don't want to drag all these files to Vancouver and then I'm throwing everything in the garbage. But they'll all be online. So anybody who wants to go there can see the files. And just before I was actually just looking for some more files to throw out just before as you phone me, I found 2 tapes from the Carmen days. And one was the interview with the guy who took the film. They took a very famous film there. It's if you're familiar with the Nimitz story, the Nimitz goes from 80,000 feet down to sea level in 7/8 of a second. This was caught on film, 1975, May of 1975. a TV crew from Winnipeg, CKY TV in Winnipeg, had a film crew out there and reporters, and they caught this thing jumping from the ground to 5,000 feet in the air in 3 frames of film, which is 1/8 of a second. It went from ground level to 5,000 feet in the air. That's why I went out there, because they were showing this film and they're slowing it down frame by frame and all this kind of stuff. And I talked to the guy who was filming it, and that's when he told me, he said, he'd never shot a camera before in his life, these big TV cameras. He was a film editor, and the guy that was the producer said, nobody's going out. This is garbage. You guys want to go out and do your stupid UFO stuff? You could go on your own. I'm not paying any more overtime. So this guy was a film editor. He never shot a camera before in his life. I remember him telling me, and I just found this tape tonight. He said, when I was looking through the viewfinder, this thing was on the ground and it seemed to glow up and glow back down and glow up and glow back down. He said, next time the thing starts to glow up again, I'm going to shoot it just so I get it on film. So I get something, we go back to the studio. And as it's almost like the UFO said, are you ready? As he pushed the trigger, this thing jumped in the air and he caught this thing on film. And J.L. Hynek called it the most famous nocturnal light film in the world. It was absolutely spectacular. And that's what got me to go there. And so I found these tapes and all the stuff you can find on my Twitter. And I'm actually starting to post some stuff. You talked about Area 51 tonight. I actually posted, I wrote the Area 51 book. You may not know this. I wrote UFOs, Area 51 and Government Informants. I wrote it as Area 51 was happening in 1989. I'm the first UFO book ever written on Area 51. And I actually post a letter from John Lear from 1990. And John Lear, in that letter, it's on Twitter. I posted to show you that the story is exactly the same as it is now. John Lear goes through the 115, about the fact that they had it, about the experiments they did on it, about the fact that they put it in the 3rd episode of this 9-part series that George Knapp had. They put the canister that was holding the 115 on the set, so that the government could see that they had the canister. And the same night, the government stole it back. And then John Lear, in this letter, you'll see we stole other things. Lazar stole other things from the flying saucer, which they also stole back. And he tells this story about seeing the UFO, about filming the UFO. It's identical to the story that is now. So whatever you think about the 115 story, that has not changed at all since 1990. And the other thing that I did, I actually wrote George Knapp tonight. I'm doing a lecture on different or same, which is this phenomena that I'm looking at now with if you remember the Lakatsky interview, it was done with George Knapp and Corbell. He said there's 200,000 sightings in the OSAP database. Every single one is different. So I went to George Knapp and I said, anybody ever come up with the 115 story except for Lazar? And I can almost guarantee you, nobody's ever come up with it. And what I'm starting to gather is all the people who've described flying the craft. I wrote the book, UFO Sky Pilots. Everybody that described flying the craft, 36 people plus, everybody touched something to make contact with the craft. The craft is alive. You become conscious with the craft. You touch it. Everybody touched something different. Nobody touched the same thing. It was like the 36 different things. I go, what's the chances that everything is different? So I asked George Knapp just before I came on. I wrote George Knapp and I said, remember that Bob Lazar said there was 9 crafts in those hangars? I said, were they all the same? I can guarantee you they're all different. And this is the whole thing. All aliens may be different. I quote Kit Green by saying 2 people in the same experience will see 2 different aliens. This whole idea that everything, it may be like leaves on a tree, 200,000 leaves on a tree. Every single one is different. Every single snowflake is different. Every single person is different, including identical twins who have different fingerprints. So I was actually talking about Area 51 and talking to George Knapp tonight. I never really talked to George unless I got a serious question I want to ask him. So it's good that now you're Area 51 for the next year, because I'm back on the story after I started in 1989. We were in contact with John Lear and with Huff and with the reporters, Billy Goodman, all these guys that were covering the story. George Knapp, we were dealing with the story as it was happening. And it has not changed in 35 years or 40 years, whatever it is.
Where do you even go with that? I mean, the story hasn't changed. Nothing has changed. We're not getting much new information, even though the story is ever evolving into a government, bureaucratic mess. Nicole, let's get you in here because we got to test your microphone. Here's the magic moment.
I think it's working now. Happy
Oh, yeah.
birthday.
We got her. We got her. I still like the robotic happy birthday, though. That was kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Happy
know.
birthday, Mr. President. You should have had the white wig. I should have got you a blonde wig to do it.
I have one in my Halloween stuff somewhere, but
Oh, yeah, that would have even been better.
we'll see. Next year you'll be
And
around.
then some
with
fake,
your Area 52,
top, fake stuff on top of it.
the mole, right?
No, the other
The
stuff
mole.
that you're interested in.
Grant, you mentioned about how the story hasn't changed, yet everything seems to be a real bureaucratic mess now. And a lot of people say it's moved the ball forward. Has it really?
I say it's going the other way. The way I describe it, like, and I think I must have talked about last time I was on the show about this, about the fact that it's legal. This whole thing is legal, and people just better get used to it. And I tell the story about now with you have Tim Burchett and Nuna and Luna and all these people, and they go into the skiff. You can see exactly how this game is played. This is a waived, unacknowledged special access program, and the Canadians started it. 1950, Wilbur Smith, top secret memo, wrote and said he was told by American officials flying saucers exist. It is the most highly classified subject in the United States. This is what I'm saying. It's the $2 million houses telling the people in the cardboard boxes, as Eric Walker told us in 1990, you're never going to get the answer. Go study something else. Why should we change the rules and regulations to satisfy your curiosity? These are the guys that have the gold. These are the billionaires. These are the autocrats. They don't care. They could care less. It's like the $900 billion defense budget. Like we say, we should not have a defense budget. We should go into peace. And they say, okay, let's shut down the defense budget. Let's all just give our money back. It's like they've got the money. There's no way they're going to give up the ghost. They're not going to shut the defense budget down. And when you're making billions of dollars or whatever they are, and all you're having now is you're having lower level guys that ran OSAP, like it was a low level program. In 2009, as soon as Reed went public and tried to get it into the black budget, the same as everything else, you never heard OSAP if that had happened. The black budget guy said, what? You want to come in and get the stuff? And that's when they shut OSAP down. Like the Conan Blue, everybody's talking about this new program. Same thing. They had the program all set, the funding. As soon as they started knocking on the doors of the guys who have the money and the control of this thing, they said, you're going to what? And they shut the program down. They stole the money. They just shut it down. They control this story, and there's no way you're going to change it. So you have Luna and Burchett. They go into the skiff. They say, we want a briefing. And they don't realize these guys have done this forever. They know exactly how it works. So they're going to have the briefing and say, you want a briefing? Okay, we'll give you a briefing. And then they say, here's the door. Come into the skiff. Bah, bah. And they go walking into the skiff and they say, here, sign this non-disclosure agreement. They go, bah, bah. And they sign the non-disclosure agreement. And then they say, Blue Book shut down in 1969. We have discovered there are no extraterrestrials and stuff. And then Burchett comes out and he's all upset and he says, this is terrible. This is stuff we learned on the street. They didn't tell us anything. And then people say, so what'd they tell you? We can't say anything. We're under non-disclosure agreement. Now they've shut those guys down. Even they can't talk. And that's the whole deal. These guys know exactly what they're doing. And as soon as you get close to the secret and the money. So what people are trying to do now, these low-level guys that are running these programs, is they're trying to draft off of defense spending. Almost all research funding in the United States is produced by one single entity. That's the United States government, and primarily the military. So if you want to study UFOs, you've got to draft into this whole thing. That's why Nicole, remember we were on this when we were on with Elizondo and Mellon, this phone call with the aide to McGuire and the aide to the NDP guy from Hamilton. And they're on there and they're saying, oh, you got to get these military guys and you got to say, that they're a threat to national security. And Nicole and I are talking and saying, no, that's not the one we want. And then McGuire's assistant basically is trying to be very nice and saying, well, no, we've got this this science advisor is going to write this report and we want it to be scientific. And
Grant Cameron and Nicole Sackage are here on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get into some Canada talk when we return on Spaced Out Radio. It's my birthday show. Favorite guest, Grant Cameron, Nicole Sackage here. Team Canada. More than just hockey, but UFOs as well. next on Spaced Out Radio.
There you go.
I put little UFOs.
You tell the story, Nicole, of what happened in that meeting, because I've told the story before. You can tell the story, and once we come back,
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of told it in pieces already.
yeah, well, you can tell the story of the key word that was uttered. And people are now saying we're covering this thing up or whatever. We're not covering anything up. But that's the last thing I do. I don't even, when I'm doing the documents online, I don't even read the stuff. I mean, anybody that told me a secret, get ready. It's probably coming out, because I don't edit anything. It's like, and that's why a lot of the aviary guys stopped talking to me, because they got a big mouth. It's like, why should I,
How long has my Bigfoot light been out?
I can't see. I got a new computer and the screen doesn't work properly.
You know what's funny, Grant, is
it's out. It looks glowing to me.
I just turned it back on.
Oh,
because I turned it on before, and then it turned off.
Maybe the Bigfoot turned it off.
I don't know.
Bigfoot or Sasquatch? Are you into that debate?
No, it's either or. As long as we're not squatching, that's all I care about.
You're just into breakfast food stuff.
Oh, bullshit.
For dinner.
Yeah, none of that. None of that.
Birthday cupcakes for breakfast.
You know what's really funny is my daughter is back in town. She brought our grandson, and she's like, "Hey, do you guys mind if I just go meet a friend, for a quick hello and drink?" About 10 minutes before showtime, I get the message, "Hey, Dad, can you come pick me up after your show?" I said, "Already on the sauce?" She goes, "Yeah."
There you go.
This girl doesn't drink. So, I mean, all of a sudden, and you know what? I've never had a beer with her. So after work, after the show, I'm going to race out of here and have
with a six-pack. What kind of beer?
Well, I'm a kokanee guy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a kokanee guy.
Yeah, kokanee's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Unlike my friend Little Marky Spender there, who dips his Cheetos in Bud Light. I mean, I don't know who does that, but he does that.
Where'd Nicole go? She's gone.
Oh, she usually has to go, check her makeup in between commercial breaks.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Dirty Filth, what are you working on there?
We need the sheep going into the skiff. We need one of the sheep going in the skiff.
Look at Filthy's birthday sleeves tonight. Look at that.
Yeah, I put my nice shirt on for you, Dave.
It's magnificent. I know.
Wow.
You're a thespian.
I can't see it, but it's revealing on the top part, Dave.
I bet you're showing off a lot of chest hair tonight.
Yeah, he's meaning his chest hair looks like your beard hair.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
I put some conditioner for extra body today.
Nice.
Oh, nobody's hungry now.
All right, hey, Dirty, do you get a discount on ammunition?
No, I don't.
Damn it.
Unfortunately. You could talk to Lone Butte guy or whatever.
No,
hey.
I don't deal with Lone Butte guy.
Oh, I'm sorry, bud.
Yeah, do you know Mark?
No, but we ship to him.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's good.
Is your kid in bed? Your grandson?
Oh yeah, he fell asleep. It was really Canadian tonight, Grant?
What's that?
I don't know if you watched the series on Crave called Shoresy.
I don't have a TV.
Oh,
no,
it's a fantastic series.
Okay.
And it's a spin-off of Letterkenny, another good Canadian show from the prairies. And it's all about senior men's hockey. And, and the league is called the No Show, the Northern Ontario Senior Hockey Association or something like that. And episodes 1 and 2 for season 3 were tonight. My little gopher there, he literally sat on my lap watching this show all about hockey.
There you go.
And,
that's good.
Yep. And I'm like, the kid's a year and a half. He's going to the show. I mean, he was born in 2022. So his draft year will be 2040. I think we may have a first rounder here. I'm just saying.
There you go. There you go. You need a shooting board. I'll set you up with a shooting board. I had my kid. He had 9 years old. He could shoot a puck from center ice over the back glass at 9 years old. Unfortunately,
Nice.
he could never keep it down. So when he'd slap shot, everybody would duck. It would always be like over top of the net.
Yep.
Couldn't keep it down.
I hear you. Big thank you tonight to Thomas W. Decker ×2, Chill Farm, Lala, Marty, Dave, Lara, Mama Catherine, Big Dog, Flat Six, Stacy, W. Decker again, Maddie, JSCO, Logan, Marv, and Kira for the super chats. Here we go with the second half hour. Here we go with the second half hour Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's my birthday show, so you get to party on with us. Hope you enjoy tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate broadcasting the weird and strange to you. If you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. We're on every major podcast network as well, so check it on out. Download them for free. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Grant Cameron, Nicole Sackage, the Canadian story. You know what I find funny about this story before we even get going is rumors swirling around the internet that I was involved with this, and I had nothing to do with it. Nothing.
Well, a little bit. You had a little bit to do with it. Yeah, a little bit.
Well, not much.
Well,
You
yeah.
guys saw me walking and talking, and I just stood by my side saying, "Hey, coach, put me in. Hey, coach, put me in." You're like, "You're benched." I'm like, "Okay." Put
Well,
me
we
in,
all
coach.
got benched in the end. We all got benched.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't just you, Grant benched himself. You were benched. Jimmy Church was benched. I think we talked about Alan hosting it because he was going to help us share the
And the,
YouTube link. So we thought about Alan.
Who's
it was
that?
going to be open. Yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Is we were going to give everybody the link that everybody could broadcast at the same time. It
And
wasn't
then
an exclusive thing.
inevitably, like where some of the drama comes in is that even Kurt got accepted, rejected. So
Big time rejected.
but that's all water under the bridge. But so to tie this in with the Canadian Education Initiative, because that's what we were talking about, or that's what we called it, in our secret code, or I called it Grant's Canadian Party for a while. And no, Dave, you didn't have anything to do with it. Except maybe, just the link of Lou Elizondo, him being brought into our education initiative with Canada. He had earlier, months prior, given you props for giving him connections to, was that McGuire or was that Otis?
I said no. Daniel Otis at that point wasn't even on the radar.
Okay.
Daniel Otis, and he'll never admit this, and I love the guy. He'll never admit this. He didn't have any contacts until I called him one day and said, "Hey, bud, we have a story here, and I'm going to give it to you because I don't have the outlet to get it on, and you do." And that's how Daniel got started with everything. But
you're the guy that outed McGuire, though. I mean, you were the main figure to start this whole thing.
I outed McGuire, and I also behind the scenes, and I held this secret for 2 years. So for anybody who claims that I don't keep secrets, I do. I held it for 2 years until Lou Elizondo actually outed me on this show in April of 2021 that I am the one who set up the talks between Canada and the U.S. The members of Parliament who wanted to have a discussion with Lou Elizondo, and I set that up.
And
did that happen?
To clarify, that gave McGuire sort of the ammunition when he made his talk. Was it to the Transportation Board?
Transportation Safety Board, yes.
Yeah. So, and that's where I think people get a little bit confused about that statement and then what Grant and I then kicked off later, because that actually fell in our lap. As you know, Grant says they kind of contacted us or Grant and Mark through their Winnipeg experiencer group. But that didn't even start with like Lou and Mellon. That started with a whole list of just UFO people that they wanted to get in touch with. So that's where we brought in like Bob Solis and Hastings, and other people made these little mini presentations to like educate these MP aides. And Grant, like we kind of even lost track of where these little info packets were being sent. Like we know they went to the aides and the MPs that they were attached to, but we also know we were dealing with 2 or 3, but there eventually became 10 or more. So we don't know who all got funneled this information inevitably. So we fast forward to they get some of these info packs, and we just keep going down this list of who they want to talk to. And Sean Cahill had met us in Vegas for your first fan party, and
Yes.
you introduced he and I, and then that sort of kicked off. Me and Grant interviewed him like a month or so later.
Yes.
We started the Canadian Education Initiative. And then we went to Sean and was like, hey, can you help us with yourself and maybe get in Lou? And things kind of grew from there. But once we got into the phone call and the talks, like, you know, they were supposed to be somewhat private. We weren't supposed to record these and, you know, use it as any kind of promo. Everything was supposed to be kept quiet until, you know, the day before or 2 days before. And yeah, during these discussions, and they were very informative and helpful, as soon as it shifted from, you know, we have this playbook, this worked in the States, which was very military heavy, you know, and Grant, I remember you and I saying, so where are we going to find like, you know, the Canadian pilots? You know, do we have 3 in reserve that we didn't know about, you know, that they knew? But it wasn't anything like that. And the aides made them fully aware that they sort of already had these committees in place, and they were all based around science and education and this academia sort of world, and not the military.
Yeah, it was the Prime Minister's science advisor that was going to do this report.
And that's kind of how high up it went. And she sort of already, she had to not be public, but she maybe had an idea of these committees she could form and who was already interested in, diving into this topic. That's how I understood it.
Yeah, and we were going to provide cover for her. She wanted
Mhm.
cover. So that
Yep.
when we did this open thing where everybody would broadcast from their stations, and they would ask questions of Nolan and Abby Loeb and Mellon and Elizondo, then this would provide her cover, and she'd say, "Oh, look, there's this demand and all this interest. We're going to do this report on," and it would give her the cover for this whole thing,
like a public interest cover, not like anything nefarious. Like, hey, there is, you know,
an
valid
interest.
interest in this. So, and our idea was, you know, the last minute we had talked to our close associates and friends, yourself included. We wanted to link all of our YouTube stations, like Grant's channel, your channel, Fade to Black. What's Alan's show? Reality something. And then Kurt Jamungle was going to link Theories of Everything. And we were just going to simultaneously broadcast this nice little question and answer back and forth, get some information, say, yay, thanks for coming together, and then wrap it up. But as soon as the talk shifted away from that military angle threat narrative playbook, that's when like the whole tone, I guess, of the talk sort of shifted. They were like, oh, that's going to be, you know, more difficult to enact and, you know, play through. You know, this was sort of tried and true, I think, was kind of the feeling I got. Like, this worked. We know it works. Stick to the plan, you know. Try to incorporate
what we're telling you to do.
And yeah, well, there was sort of a pushback from that. But then everything was decided. We chose a date. And I think the final 3, because we did whittle it down. We didn't want it to be huge. We were trying to avoid the circus, you
Well,
know.
we were going to do that's what Sean Cahill said. I was going to try to turn this into a circus. I said, "You're damn right. So I was going to turn it into a circus. And the more publicity, the better."
Right. Well, I didn't understand if he meant like with who we wanted to include or how we were going to broadcast. You know, that circus comment was never like really clarified in
And
the
to point
aftermath of it falling through. But yeah,
and to point out, Cahill was never part of it. We didn't want Cahill on the panel, and he took over the whole thing. We
well,
wanted Nolan, we wanted Mellon, we wanted Elizondo, and they all agreed to do this, and Avi Loeb. But
he was,
what was Cahill? He just had a sighting. It was sort of, but
he
he
was asked, I think, to give one of these little mini packets like the Bobs did, like Bob Salas did, like we had Hastings do. And yeah, like I think in that initial, I guess, format of how they thought it would be with this military side, then
yeah.
Sean would have been included. But then, and I think maybe they thought he was cut out, maybe like that's a scenario, but he was never in, just like Dave was never hosting. You know, like those final people were actually decided upon by who the MPs wanted. And then it was Lou said he could bring in Mellon. So those next talks, the next talk, Mellon joined us. And then they said Gary Nolan. Then we agreed to the date and time.
And Lou was all good for it. It was all good for it.
Mellon actually chose the date. You know, he was like, yes, let's do it this date. They agreed to Kurt. And then it was the next day the plug got pulled. So
but it happened during the meeting. You're forgetting the big line that I asked you. I said, did he actually say this? Because they kept pushing on this military thing.
No.
And then the Canadian member aides kept saying, well, no, they want to do a scientific investigation. That's what we're interested in doing. Scientific. And then what did Mellon say?
You remember it as he said, well, that's the poison pill.
That's the poison pill. I'm out.
I don't know if he said the I'm out part. I don't recall that. I do remember the poison pill comment. And I took that as it would be more difficult if you don't stick to this playbook that we've already proven.
They kept going on this thing about the Logan Act. We're not here to tell you what to do. We can't tell another country what to do. But it was we can't tell you what to do, but unless you do what we're telling you to do, we're out.
That was the gist. And even in hindsight, that's more of what that stands out to me.
And I think Cahill probably pulled the plug on it.
We made it very clear from the beginning that we wanted this citizens hearing sort of feel to it, you know, information. The questions would be agreed upon. But yeah, and so it was disappointing. And even like the slides, that's the other part. There was a slideshow presentation that was made
by Cahill.
And yeah, and I had made amendments to this. And I think it was a slideshow presentation that they had used before for Skyfort or maybe something else to present their chats to people. Because, yeah, there was the one that had the timeline and it went from like 1940s all the way through to now. But there was a gap between like 1960 to like 2004. And we're like, why can't we fill in this gap with cases? And I was listed as a subject matter expert for MPs to contact if they needed any information. And so we switched some things around, and some of those slides were released after the fact. Sean released some, but they weren't the ones that we approved and like the MP aides saw. And, you know, we made minor adjustments, and there was some hard work that went into this on me and Sean's behalf, but it did fall through.
And it would have been a big thing because Dave can go into this. I mean, I was shocked when the aide said that McGuire was briefing 10 people, 10 MPs from all different parties on people who are just interested. He was sort of telling them what was going on, bring them up to speed, who's who or whatever, and that he was going to bring these 10 guys, and then we're going to have the top experts in the United States and 10 MPs who would go public in Canada and say, hey, we're interested in UFOs. And it would have been the biggest story ever. And it all just basically fell apart because they basically pulled the plug. First, they blamed the the host, that we'd had the wrong host, and they were there. If they who was going to be the host, they were out, and it was all these. You were doing this in the background. You were sort of the person who was doing all the negotiation. They were going through you, but it was all these petty stuff about who's going to host it and stuff, and it was just bizarre. But I remember the thing. It was this, and that's why the point I was trying to make is that they were going to. The thing is, you're going to draft off of this research money from the government. So nobody's got money, but if you can get the government to be scared and put up defense money, defense has got all the money. They got $900 billion budget. Not going to miss $1 billion. All these guys would get funding, and then they could get patents, and they could make billions of dollars and live in big houses and stuff like that. And that's what they were trying to get us to do was do this fear thing, whereas the Canadians were more into this thing about, oh, let's just try to figure out what this thing is. And Dave, you may have some information as to, is this report coming out? It's supposed to be coming out any day now, right?
The Canadian report from Dr. Mona Niemer, and I talked to one of the government aides just the other day. In fact, I forgot to call him back. Damn it. But I did talk to him, and we were talking about the report. It is due out in late summer, early fall, pardon me. And it is something that will have a scientific approach. From what I'm hearing, Dr. Mona Niemer has been having a little bit of trouble getting some information from some of the Canadian alphabet agencies that don't want to play fair. They're blocking her way on trying to get some of the hard data that they have. But she's a tough lady, and she's not taking no for an answer. The key here, though, Grant, that I'm noticing is there's three major parties in Canada for people who don't know. You have the Conservative Party of Canada, you have the New Democratic Party, and you have the residing Liberal Party run by Justin Trudeau. And the NDP and the Conservatives seem to be really bipartisan on bringing this topic out. However, we know Trudeau has been briefed at minimum 3 times about this subject. We know that his former ambassador to the U.S. was chatted to about this subject in 2019. We know the defense ministers have been read in on it, and the Liberal Party, though, is not talking about it. They've been kicked out of the Five Eyes in certain conversations regarding defense, especially with Australia and New Zealand. So I'm not really sure how this is going to gain steam, because no other party in Canada outside the Liberals actually has access to top secret information. And the Liberal Party is not speaking about this.
Well, let me tell you a story about that, because when I did the Carmen thing, Jack Murda was the member of parliament for the Carmen area, and he knew all the people who'd had sightings. So he was helping me, and actually the aide, McGuire's aide, went and talked to him. He's still alive. And he was helping me big time. And as soon as he got into power, it all stopped. It's like, depends whose ox is getting gored. If you're going to speak, like Wilbur Smith said that, no minister is going to speak and go public on a subject that he doesn't have the answers to. So that's what I found. The same with James Richardson, who was the Secretary of the Minister of Defense at one point. He was my member here, and he was answering letters. And as soon as he got into power, he stopped talking. And it's sort of like, if you're in the opposition, you can say everything you want and call them out on this and that. I'll guarantee you, if the Conservatives were to get in power, they would shut up to it. It would all just die, because that's what I said in the beginning of the show. This is legal. This is game over. This is a legal operation that if it's a waived, unacknowledged special access program, the most highly classified subject, even the existence of the program is top secret. If you release the fact that there is a program, you go to jail. And that's the whole thing. So when you had the amendment done by Rounds and Schumer, it was blocked by one guy. And that's what I said. If there had been 6 more Democrats in the House, we would have had disclosure day. But because they didn't have the House, this Rogers guy, or Turner, was able to block. He was able to get the party leader on his side. Then it becomes a House or a party vote, which means they're going to lose it. And he said that it's dead. Then they had to go back and renegotiate. So what did they do? They went back and renegotiated the Schumer amendment. And what they did is they took out the 9-person panel that had subpoena power. Then they took out the eminent domain thing, where they had to give the crafts back. and it was basically gutted down to nothing. And then it was signed by the House, it was signed by the Senate, and it was signed by the President of the United States, which means it's the law. They don't have to be under subpoena. They don't have to give up their material. They don't have to give up the crafts. This is the way it is. This is the law. And if you're in a special access program like Walker, that's what he said. Why should we change the rules and regulations? You just want to know because you're curious. We are not going to give up this secret because it has all this technology implications. We can use it against the Russians. We can use it against the Chinese. If they get it, they're going to destroy us. And it's this whole idea that it is this highly classified program, which basically comes down to 8 people in the House and the Senate in the United States. In this gang of 8 get to know. And that's why Reid was writing the letter for OSAP, because he was on the gang of 8. And so he knows, but he doesn't even know the details of the program. He just knows there's a program. There are only a couple of people, and they can even avoid the congressman by signing him into these non-disclosure agreements, and they control the secret, and they'll be damned if they're going to give up the secret. There's no way. They just figure you're just some low-level person. And now we're even talking in the United States about having more of a dictatorship or like a one person running the whole show. I mean, you think that we're not voting on stuff now? Get ready. I mean, if one guy takes over, it's like, is Putin going to disclose? Absolutely not. I mean, he's why would he disclose? He controls everything. Same as Xi in China. They're not going to disclose. And that's the whole thing. The people who have the big houses and have the multi-billion-dollar budgets are not going to shut the budgets down because Dave and Grant and Nicole are interested in knowing what's going on. End of story.
Well, and let's sum this up. So you brought up Eric Walker, and that he said, you're never going to get access. Why would we change our rules? Study something else.
Yeah.
And then so we've tied it in with Canada and wanting to have more of a science and academia education approach to the UAP UFO topic, which sort of brings us back around to what we saw with Kona Blue. And that was presented, it was to the Department of Homeland Security. Yeah. So Grant, I guess what I pose to you is, so Kona Blue is obviously sort of like, hey, OSAP, ATIP, what, like you said, this
same guys,
wasn't a major player, thing. It was lower level, but they needed it to continue. And it sounds like Kona Blue was sort of like trying to umbrella in as much as they possibly could to sort of get this funding, and they're butting up against the real deal,
the real program.
They're not going to flex on but I guess what I want your opinion on, because we really haven't talked about this much because my phone always drops calls to Canada. But so do you think if they would have approached getting this SAP from maybe the Department, of Education, and not seeking like DOD money or Homeland Security money, like they maybe would have had a better shot at this? Because it seems like when they go for the defense money or this big money in this arena, that's when they get shut down.
Well, when the bottom line, because Dave's going to a break, but the bottom line is the minute you decide you're going to get the program and you knock on the door of a black budget program, they say, who the hell is what's going on here? Shut this program down. These guys have no need to know. And that's why it got shut down so fast, because Lakatsky and those guys. And if you know the story, they gave this briefing. There's a story about the night when the orb got bombarded that kid. That was the same night they gave the briefing to Homeland Security, and these guys couldn't sleep. They were so scared that night they couldn't sleep to Homeland Security, and they had the event at Skinwalker Ranch the same night. And that's the thing, is they wanted this program. They set it up, but the minute they knocked on a black budget door, then there was game over. They shut the program down. That's what they did when Reid gave the notice in 2009. They shut him down because he started asking the black budget program for the material, and they're not going to give it up to some lower level program. We're running the show. Get out of here, and they shut everything down.
They say it shuts down, but it really doesn't. It might.
Well, the big guys. No, the big guys.
Lateral move. It might change names. But then it like reemerges. So do you think Kona Blue has reemerged already? And
no, it's the same as OSAP and ATIP. The minute they knocked on the door of the black budget program, they were dead in the water. They stole their money. These guys, you're playing. What did they say? What did Dick D'Amato say to Stephen Greer? He said, "You're up against the varsity program of all black budget programs. Good luck to you."
Hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio is next with Nicole and Grant. UFO talk all night long. We'll be right back. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. I had to mute you, Nicole, because I felt a swear word coming on.
It's your birthday. I'm trying really hard not to.
I know. I appreciate that. I'll be right back, guys. You guys chat away. Dirty.
Yeah,
have a
put
little-
Filthy up. I'm going to let Buster run.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, look.
Hold
Oh,
on,
Ooh.
let's,
what are you doing, Dave? Struggling.
Oh, look.
That's okay. You can struggle on your birthday, Dave.
He's Area 51 years old today.
There we go.
Oh, yeah. Let's put that in there, shall we? There we go. Well, it looks better in person, trust me.
We had a blob sighting while me and Grant were talking. I saw Blob said hello. There she is. Look at that
Sorry, Blob.
magnificent blob.
Capital T, the Blob. I'm slowly losing feeling in my legs. They're sitting on me. It's going to be snack time when Dave gets back. All the cats are prowling around. I'm starting to fear for my life. Yes. Thanks, Susan. I appreciate it. I was actually going to draw something else. And normally I got life drawing and stuff today, but I got tied up with some other things and it didn't work out. And so Dave messaged me. He's like, I want a birthday drawing. So I figured I'd come draw Dave's birthday drawing. It's a little bit of a change from staring at naked people on a Friday and drawing them. Sweetie Pete's? That sounds like some kind of candy of some sort.
Yeah.
Jam to the universe. Ooh, the best jam is Saskatoon berry jam. There's no discussion on that whatsoever. Actually, there's some Hutterites that live out by me here in Alberta,
Oh yeah.
and they make really good Saskatoon berry pies.
Yeah, that's good. Anybody hasn't had that, man? It's pretty rare, but it's
Yeah, I got a friend that lives by Buck Lake, and every time I go out there, we always stop at the Hutterites and get Saskatoon. Oh, there you go, Blob. Oh, get Saskatoon berry pies. Oh yeah, there we go. Blob, for a small cat, you really weigh a lot. I don't know how it works. There's not very much space in the blob, but it's heavy. There must be some dark matter inside of her. Right, Blobby?
a black hole.
Yeah. She used to actually be, we used to call her Blob because she was pretty blobby and big, but then when we moved, she sleeps upstairs and then the litter box is in the basement, so she's got to go down 2 levels to go poop. So
Oh well.
now she's got her exercise and she can run around outside, and usually they're out this late, but brought them in early today.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Blob.
So Filthy, tell me about the calendar. Are you working on next year's already?
I'm going to draw 12 separate drawings instead of using previously drawn drawings.
Right.
It's
And
automatically.
do you
Go
have
ahead.
any blank dates left?
Oh, yeah,
the
I got
goal-
plenty of them.
The goal was to fill every day of every month. Like, we can keep working on it.
Yes, we have to. Because, there's, if you buy your other calendars off like Wish or whatever, they don't seem to be as good as mine.
No, I just want to, look at my calendar every day and go, oh, hey, on this
Crap, I
day,
didn't send you one, did I?
30 years ago was Phoenix Lights or Rendlesham
Well,
Forest or
Last
Charlie
Monday
Red
was the.
Star.
Ooh, I don't have a Charlie Red Star one there, I don't think.
Oh, well, you have to ask Grant the date. He knows. It's his says Charlie.
Actually, Monday was the anniversary of the Falcon Lake incident,
Ooh.
which was some of the best recorded documentation of injuries from a UFO, so to speak, unless the guy somehow just burned his own clothes. But I was going to draw. I'm going to draw a new one of those too.
Phil,
Grant.
Phil,
Grant's back.
Paramarv is asking,
Oh,
Saskatoon berries taste like?
well, they taste pretty Saskatoony. That's like asking what chicken tastes like. It's hard to describe a flavor. You can't use another flavor to describe a flavor, but they're pretty sweet, and you don't get a lot of little pits in them. Like sometimes when you have blueberries, you get those stupid little pits, and they get stuck in your teeth, and then you're sitting there jamming spikes in your teeth. Anyways, I have to go deliver snacks to the cats, Dave.
Hey,
Blob
thanks, Blob, for the blobbing, eh?
Thanks, Blob. Dave says thank you.
All right, Sasquatch Gee, how you doing? Christine Lynn, good to see you. Tim in the backwoods, I didn't eat any more ice cream yet. That's for tomorrow. Big thank you
to everybody.
Good night, Dirty Filth. Thank you to Kira, Marv, Logan, JSCO _ Maddie, W Decker ×2, Stacy, Flat 6, Big Dog, Lala, Marty, Dave, Laura, Mama Catherine, Chill Farm, and Thomas for the great super chats tonight. Hi, Filtered Mindy. We still want to see the unfiltered version. Forrest Louie, thank you for the super chat as well. Here we go, everybody. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. We're on every major podcast network as well. Yep, you can hear some, Spotify, iHeartRadio. You know the way. Just go listen. Just hit that subscribe button as well. That's all I want. That's all I want. All right, our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. I'm trying to find the password here. For some reason, I can't find Clam's password. I don't know why. Hold on a second here. Let's just go like this. Because we can't move on without the password. It's impossible. There it is. Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Boustrophodon. Boustrophodon is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. All right, Grant Cameron, Nicole Sackett are here, hanging on out. We're talking UFOs. Yes, the legend, Grant Cameron. Why is he here tonight? Well, it's my birthday. I am Dave Area 51 now. Dave Area 51. Grant Cameron is just the legend. Nicole Sackett is just awesome. Here we go. Nicole, you were saying right before the break about, just kind of how everything kind of shut down and with Canada, and now we're moving on and seeing things move forward with the United States. Finish up your thought if you want.
Well, I was trying to tie in Kona Blue, which I think Grant snuck in his answer. But to round out the Canadian drama side, where people think that we're like hiding something or not disclosing something is maybe because we really don't know like solid reasons of why it inevitably fell through. But at the time, it's not like our Canadian education really stopped. Like I know, Grant, you stayed in contact with the MPs and the aides for a while. We were asked to not publicly talk about things that we were going to do because Larry, I think, was launching a statement that he wanted to be sort of official and he didn't want that blabbed. So we kind of kept that on the down low for a while. But then there were also things, even from the discussions, that I think, like, I know, Grant, you kind of discussed the whole format of how we wanted things to play out, and so did the MP aides. And then, like, Lou Elizondo really talked about some of their future plans, which were San Marino. And it was all around this initiative with San Marino. And so that was kind of what we were told to, not really discuss publicly, because that was still happening and being enacted. But we actually got invited to San Marino. Grant, do you remember that? Like,
Yeah.
they were like, come join us, tell Larry
Yeah, they
that
were.
this is going to happen.
Elizondo was really friendly. In fact,
Yeah.
at the end of the second meeting, you were talking about another meeting, and Elizondo, you and him, Elizondo, I said, no more meetings. Like we spent a lot of years at university in management meetings. I said, no more. Let's just set a date. Forget no more meetings.
Mellon
But
actually
Elizondo was
said
ready to
that.
come back to another meeting.
Yeah, Mellon actually said that. Mellon said, no more meetings. Let's pick this date. Can everybody make this time? This works. And then I think to kind of further it, aside from that meeting, that's when Jacques Vallée got introduced into sort of the discussions. I remember closing that meeting, and one of the MPAs was like, who's Jacques Vallée? Like, why would that be important? And I was like, oh no, like, we have a lot more like educating we have to do. So I did think that was, kind of odd that we kind of set the plan, and then up until the last minute, they were still in flux on some things. And
Yeah.
I never really even found out if Gary Nolan actually got invited. Like, I think he did, but I'm not sure.
I think it got
So,
canceled before they
you know,
actually the invite.
some
But it
of
would have
those,
been fascinating. Would have been a fascinating thing. I mean, that was the whole idea. You'd have 10 MPs, and you'd have the Jacques Vallée and Nolan and maybe Hal Puthoff and these top experts answering these questions. It would have been absolutely spectacular. And
well, the
I couldn't
idea
figure out.
was to do like not just one, but maybe a few of them. Like, have 3 people come and talk, 3 more people come and talk, because that was kind of the citizens
Just
disclosure
to answer
movement.
questions from these MPs.
So
Because
yeah,
I was surprised how many MPs were involved. I mean, that's where Dave comes in. Dave is more
Yeah.
on that whole thing of, you could probably still do that, Dave. Is you get a couple MPs, bring a couple of experts, and get them to ask questions
it did
publicly.
grow
And
though. It started off as Larry McGuire and another one, and then after a couple little mini packets on people, then I think the number was 4 to 6. And
Dave
then
knows
a
Dave
few
knows
weeks
them all.
later,
You know
that's
them
when
all,
they were
Dave.
like, there's 10 and like 10 to 15, I think is what they actually threw out. And we were like,
Yeah.
what? Like, and that's when they sort of broke that it was Dr. Mona, is what I kept calling her. Dr. Mona, Dr. Mona. So I couldn't believe it was, well, being the American and with all you Canadians, I was like, that's like executive level stuff, right? Like, so I was impressed with that. It would have been magnificent. It would have been a magnificent circus. And like, I remembered, because I was so like, everybody kept it so quiet. I had talked to you. I had talked to Jimmy Church. I had talked to Alan, and who's his assistant that I'm always like, oh, do I have to talk to him? Like, and then I talked to him anyways. But everybody like came together. Like, Jimmy was like, yeah, I can show you how to do this. We can link this up, but I don't really, need any part of it. Like, everybody just wanted to help me, help you, and help Canada. And the idea was like, break the internet. The day of it, that's when we can finally talk about it. And if all of our friends help us broadcast it at once, that's all the promo we needed. We didn't need to go around and tell everybody the secret plans or anything. So it would have been fun. But there's no like big kept secret of, oh, Grant and Nicole and Dave aren't talking about Canada for whatever reason. And,
You should know better about me. I
you
talk
have big secrets. Like, I mean, I don't, maybe San Marino at the time, if we would have talked about that, that would have been, like a scoop, but we weren't in it to scoop anybody's plans of what was going on. So,
The funny part about it is that you look at it now, Canada wanted to do things so differently than the United States. Yet, if you look at who they have been talking to regarding this down south, It's been military officials. It's been NASA. It's been the CIA, the other alphabet agencies. Like, I don't think they have talked to any of the Congress people who've been fighting for this subject, whether it's Tim Burchett or Matt Gaetz or Anna Luna or anybody like that, because that hasn't come out. But we do know that Dr. Mona Niemer's team has been talking to all of the people who are threat narrative, or we can't find anything. You know, I find that very interesting that they've gone down that angle, and I've criticized them for that in phone calls that I've had with people in Ottawa about why they are doing it that way. And I've said to them, you're making a mistake here.
Mhm.
You guys had the ball rolling. You could have been Wilbur Smith 2024, but you went and got information from all of these deniers of the UFO story. I said, that doesn't make sense to a scientific study.
But I guess they figure that's where that's true. That's where the stuff is. But I think you confirmed that Niemer's not getting anybody replying. So of course you're going to go to the CIA, you're going to go to the NRO and stuff like that, and because that's the same as the Kona Blue and the ATIP and the OSAP. As soon as they wanted to get the material, so they go to the black budget programs, and nobody's talking because the black budget programs aren't going to give up their secrets. So she's doing that thing where they do have the material. It's just they're not going to talk to her. There's just no way.
Well, one of the aides actually brought that up, and they weren't naming Dr. Mona at the time. And they said, like, no, this person we're talking about has the highest level clearances that you could possibly have. Like, she shouldn't have problems, accessing anything with her counterparts on, this side of things. And they had said, when she first reached out and others reached out, it was very friendly, lines of communication, but that had all also sort of stopped or stonewalled, or they were getting we'll get back to you, but then never the follow-up. And that's where they were kind of offended, because she was cleared to the max. She could have heard anything anybody had to say. So,
except in the States, she's not cleared in the States. They figure like it's
right.
not even these foreigners that think they're going to get stuff. You can go back to the Wilson leak document, which is one of the things I've always now complained about. Is I put the Wilson leak document out, and there was at least 7 or 8 people who were sitting on this damn thing for 10 years, and they didn't do anything. And if I hadn't leaked it, we'd still be back in the old days. But you take a look. Here's the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's talking to Eric Davis. Eric Davis is asking this question, answer, question, answer, back, forth. And then he says this question. And he says, core secret. Can't talk about it. It's the thing. It's a core secret. You can't talk about it at the highest level. And that's what it is. So they're simply not going to talk to lower level programs, because that's what the OSAP was. It was like an idea that they got, well, let's start this UFO program to investigate UFOs. And they didn't realize there's these real high level programs that are already running. And when the high level program sees these other little junior school kids who decide they want to come in and play, they say, shut these guys down and take their money and make them go away. And that's what basically happened to all these programs. And you just can't, because the door is basically shut with these programs that have the need to know. And yet at the same time, they're leaking. So that's, we haven't talked about that yet, but Nicole and I were involved in this, where they seem to be still dripping stuff out. They seem to want to get stuff out. There's somebody whether it's half the people want it out and half the people want it covered up or whatever, but they're doing this disclosure thing, but it's counterintelligence. And that's where I like Nicole's new name, the Weird Desk. You have this whole concept that she's in contact with she's been put in contact with people who ran the Weird Desk. And that's where these guys, as Ron Pandolfi, one of them said, he talked about in an email that I recovered, he's talking to all the other guys, and they talk about the fact that that Reed wasn't briefed. Reed wouldn't have been briefed. There's no way they would have briefed Reed, not like Hillary Clinton. And then Kit Green says, well, in fact, they did brief Reed. And then Ron Pandolfi, who ran the Weird Desk, says, oh, it depends what you mean by briefing. When the senators and congressmen ask me, I say, yeah, I've got the keys. I can give you the keys and I can put you in there, but you can get in a lot of trouble with the information. So I'll leave it up to you. And he said most of them will say, okay, you keep the keys. So now Nicole is on this thing, and it's, are we getting information, disinformation? But she's dealing with two of the former people from the Weird Desk, and there is this program that I started in 1989. I talked about this fact that they're dripping this stuff out. So Mellon says, no, there's no government disclosure program. And it's like, there absolutely is a government disclosure program, because Tom DeLonge was talking to a 2-star general at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He was talking to a 1-star general at Space Command, and he was talking to the head of Lockheed Skunk Works. They were all active in the government, which means he was talking to people in the government who were telling him things. And that, so there is this other side of the thing where there's still people who are leaking material, and they're playing this game, and Nicole and I are involved in this thing. And it may go somewhere, it may not. It looked like this was going to be big time, and then the meeting didn't take place. I don't know if we can get into it, but there is this effort that Nicole and I are involved in where they are leaking material.
There's always a meeting somewhere, right? Like, but like you saying, there's always maybe a leak, even going like with your work and Wilbert Smith. And so now with Arrow's latest report, they're trying to say Wilbert Smith's work was just his private personal interest. So, okay, well, even if it was Wilbert's private personal interest, who on that official level was still funneling him this information and these documents and, what he was gathering and collecting, that's the same with you or me, these people who are insiders or we're insiders or outsiders. Is it anything official? No, probably not. Is there always that plausible deniability? Absolutely. Because what's it matter if I hear a story from somebody who's, telling
but that's
stories.
the game you're playing. In fact, the link that I've got on my Twitter today, I just posted, is the link. You can actually go and get all the Wilbur Smith files from the University of Ottawa, which is where Mona Niemer was the head of research. And so she better have the Wilbur Smith stuff in there. I actually post a letter that Wilbur Smith wrote in 1956 or whatever, and he said, I was the head of the official Canadian government program from 1950 to 1954. End of story. It's it. I posted the document where he writes a letter to someone and says, and so that's the game they played. Is like, oh no, it was just unofficial. It was just private stuff. After 1954, yeah, they basically shut him down. And what Wilbur Smith said in 1954, he gave the Canadian government an ultimatum: either get on the pot or get off. And they said, okay, we're getting off, and they shut the program down.
Well,
Grant, I want to ask you something. It's relevant to the topic, but a little bit different here. Carl Nell, former colonel, just had his conference at the SALT conference where he spoke here. And one of the things that really caught me and my attention was the fact that he mentioned that what Haim Eshed in Israel and what Paul Hellyer had stated about communication with aliens and aliens being here was true. He felt it was true. What do you think about that?
You want me to talk? The Canadians were in contact. I've actually got the book. Was called New Science. Wilbur Smith wrote the book. The last chapter or 2 chapters weren't there because he died. His wife put it out and his son put it out. And he basically said, every nation of the world, 1956 letter to Caswell. The guy's name is Caswell in Ontario. He said, for your information, every nation of the earth has been informed of the existence of the visitors from elsewhere. Whatever they do is up to them. Nothing more can be done along this line. It's a waste of time to pursue it. And so he had in contact, the Canadians were in contact with an alien by the name of Afa and Tyla. And Tyla was the garbage collector. He was cleaning up after the nuclear detonation stuff. And Afa, there's the official story. It was in the front page of all the Canadian newspapers. And in July of 1967, during the Centennial Project, when Hellyer went to St. Paul, Alberta, and he opened a UFO landing base at St. Paul. And he said, this is not the first time we built a UFO landing base in Canada. We had one in Suffield in 1954, and nothing landed. Therefore, UFOs don't exist. So when I got that article, I went to Wilbur Smith's wife, who was still alive, in 1978, and I said to her, hey, read this article. And she read it, and I said, was Wilbur involved in this? She said, yeah, that was Wilbur. And I said, so what happened? She said, well, Wilbur told the Canadian government, she said, if you guys were to stop trying to shoot this thing down, I'll get it to land. I'll get AFA to land. And they said, okay. So they made the arrangement at a top secret base. It's no overflight. It's like an Area 51 in Canada, Suffield, Alberta. It's an army base. And they said the UFOs would get to land there. And that's when I was writing Hellier already back in the 1970s. Me and a researcher by the name of, out of Ottawa, his name is escaping me. And we were writing to Hellier and we were saying, hey, Paul, so how do the UFO knows where to land? I mean, you open the base, somebody's got to be in communication with the alien. And that's what happened, according to Wilbur Smith's wife, is that Wilbur had this contact and AFO was going to land and they wanted an agreement. So the Canadian Parliament agreed, the cabinet, and then the RCMP agreed and the Defense Department agreed. And then she said that Wilbur wanted an agreement, AFA wanted an agreement, that when he landed, they would actually allow it to take off again. It went to RCMP. They said, yeah. Went to the Defense Department. They said, yeah. It went to Laurier's cabinet, and they couldn't give a 100% guarantee. And Wilbur said, that's it, calling it off. So nothing ever landed there because the Canadians wouldn't give a guarantee to allow the thing to take off again. This was all arranged. So Canadians were in contact, and there's all sorts of stories about various contacts. Even Jim Semivan talks about it and then backs off and says, I better not get into that. I better not talk about that. But yeah, there's been contacts. Absolutely.
And you have to throw in about where they knew how to land or how they could get AFA to land. And that's, they were channeling this information, correct? Like this, the whole thing, like it was serious. Like it wasn't even like, oh, yeah, they're channeling and in contact with this being. It was like, nope, we channel AFA. It's talking to us. It's doing this. Like, it's very matter of fact. That blows a lot of people away. They don't like realize this, you know, the consciousness connection or the telepathic communication. They don't really view that as like mediumship or channeling. So I do like to point that out, that Wilbur Smith and, you know, the Canadians were all into channeling aliens back in the, what was the year?
From 1954. When did Swan? 54. She met this alien that came into they were putting up Halloween decorations, and this AFA came in and she started to channel, and she was the one that actually went to Betty Hill. When Betty Hill, Nightcap wouldn't have anything to do with Betty Hill. They said, aliens don't grab people off the road. No way. So they sent her to Mrs. Swan. Mrs. Swan was the one who was channeling AFA. And then she said, oh, you're in contact with the Greys? They're the evil ones. Get out of our house. And she threw Betty Hill out of the house. She wouldn't talk to her. And the thing was that the U.S. Navy was watching Mrs. Swan in 1954. And then in 1959, they went back again. There was CIA and Navy intelligence, and the documents are there. There's an Air Force document, and there's an FBI document that described this. And they went there, and that's what Mrs. Swan said. They said, oh, we talking about the channeling. She says, well, why don't I just teach you how to do it? And the one guy, he was a CIA guy. She put her hand on his right shoulder, and all of a sudden he starts doing this automatic writing, and he's talking, and he goes running back to Art Lundahl. So Nicole is in contact now with the head of the Weird Desk, Ron Pandolfi. But before Ron Pandolfi was Kit Green. Before Kit Green was a guy by the name of Art Lundahl. He was the guy that did all the film analysis for the Blue Book and for the Robertson panel. And he was at the CIA, ran the National Photographic Interpretation Center, which analyzed all the U-2, the SR-71, and the satellite photographs. And so this guy came in, and he knew that Art was big time into UFOs. And he says, she taught me how to channel. And then Art Lundahl says, really? Okay, sit down. Let's talk to the alien. And this is in UFOs Past, Present, and Future, which is redone as UFOs That Has Begun. It's on the internet. You can watch it, where they go to the National Photographic Interpretation Center in Washington, which was one of the most highly classified buildings in the United States. In fact, the people around there thought that they were making money because there were so many guards around this old. It was above a car dealership in the slums of Washington. The reason they put it in the slums so the Russians could never find it, and that's where they analyzed all the spy photographs. And
hold right there, Grant. We're going to hit the pause button on you and Nicole for just a moment here, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Hard to believe we're already through halfway of Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's my birthday show, so I brought my two favorite people on, Grant Cameron, Nicole Sackage. We're having a blast tonight on the show. We're going to get more into this. This story continues as Grant Cameron and Nicole Sackage present their work for UFOs for humanity. We'll be right back. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. Grant, Vaughn in Edmonton has a question for you. And we met Vaughn at the fan party here. You know what? Screw it, Grant. I'm bringing you to the fan party next year. You got to come. Is Cold Lake the Canadian Area 51? I witnessed a UFO about 80 kilometers from Cold Lake 11 and a half years ago, diamond-shaped with an orb that came out of it.
I don't think so. I think it's just an air base. The only one that I know of that is like the top secret, has a no-fly zone, is the Suffield, which is they used to test nerve gas and stuff like that. And I remember the one guy that worked for Wilbur Smith worked there, and I said, what about they blew up a town? They did a nuclear thing where they had all these dummies, and they blew up this town, and people, they had the troops around it to see what the effect of a nuclear blast would be and stuff like that. They were doing this really weird stuff. That's where you're getting like Area 51, where you get the underground and stuff. Cold Lake, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, is just a base with all the big high-end jets and stuff like that. But I don't think it's all that secret. You can go onto the base.
What's the secret thing supposedly north of you, north of Manitoba or north of Winnipeg? Like what? Even like Mellon brought it up, because they were giving us advice on, we should seek out Canadian cases where it's like they share the border, because you could probably FOIA and gather more documentation of that. But then they mentioned like these cases like north of you. Like,
they mentioned a case. Yeah, that was when I said we didn't have any military cases. They gave us that one case. I'd never heard of it before.
But there's like a strange, and Dave, you might know, there's like maybe even like this newer like folklore about this area north of where Grant lives. Maybe we need to dig into this more.
Well, we do. And believe it or not, Nicole, I was actually going to ask Grant that question in the next half hour. Because, because
Grant doesn't know.
I don't do sightings, though. I don't do sightings.
No, I'm not asking about sightings. Hello, Miss Tessa Marie. How are you? Welcome to the show. And Abbott Hoffman. I grew up in Abbotsford. Nice and close, man. Nice and close.
That's where NORAD scrambled. No, I guess it was at the base there, the Air Force base on the island there.
Yeah, Campbell. It's Comox.
Comox, yeah, that's where the NORAD guy got on film, where he talks about scrambling the jets, and the UFO moved 50 miles in a second, just boop, down the coast.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. My friend Paul, when he was in the Navy, they were sailing up toward. They were about 150 miles off or kilometers offshore from Vancouver Island, and they were sailing north to Alaska for a training mission. And him and another guy were on watch overnight, and all of a sudden, about 50 miles away, they pick up on radar this object, and they're like, well, what the hell is a helicopter doing out? We got no more ship traffic, there's no air. They're calling air traffic control. There's no airplanes in the air, and they watched this orb zip right by them on the boat and had Alaska that dip right into the water. Right.
Wow. Yeah. They like the military. They like to scare the daylights out of the military.
Well, the ferret lives in Comox. Snowbirds just left there. You know what was awesome, Grant? On Monday, on holiday Monday, I actually was chatting with my dad. I'm standing on my patio, and I hear this big rumbling sound. And I look up, and there's a B-1 bomber flying over at about, it had to be between 30 and 40,000 feet.
Yeah.
You could tell from the undercarriage of the shape of it. It was heading towards Alaska. I heard that jet for another 5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are they doing over Canada? You would have to get
probably flying. I believe there's a B-1 Lancer base in central U.S., and they were probably flying over top to get to Alaska.
Yeah.
Elmendorf. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't see much military stuff here in terms of jets and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. The ferret was just enjoying the last couple of weeks watching the snowbirds train in Comox.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big thing. They had the accident, but I guess they're back in business again.
Oh, yeah. Ferret, do you live by Crown Isle Golf Course then? Because that's like right beside the base. Thank you to all of our super chatters tonight. Thomas W. Decker, Chill Farm. Actually, W. Decker's got a hat trick now. Lala, Marty, Dave, Lara, Mama Catherine, Big Dog, Flat Six, and Stacy, Maddie, JCO, Marv, Kira, Louie, Vaughn, Android, Dry Toast, and Joan. Here we go, everybody.
Dry toast gets me every time.
And Gailey. Thank you, Gailey. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Now, Grant Cameron and Nicole Sackage are here. We're talking UFOs all over the world. What's happening in the U.S., what's happening in Canada. And I got a Manitoba question for you, Grant, because, you're still a Manitoban. Your time is winding down, but you're still a Manitoban for now. I got tipped off by a couple people to say, and all they told me, and these are reputable people, watch Manitoba. What the heck is happening in Manitoba that all of these UFO people are watching Manitoba? Is this where they're coming in? I know you don't do sightings, but what the heck is going on in Manitoba?
Nothing. As far as I know, there's nothing going on in Manitoba, and I never relate things to. I relate it to the people rather than to the site. Everybody sort of thinks that there's a phenomena that's attracted to Skinwalker Ranch and stuff, and you got to look at the Utes getting wiped out in the Civil War time, and there's 21,000, and a couple of years later there's only 8,000. They're all massacred and stuff like that, and then you wonder why the thing's like a paranormal hot zone. Yeah, I think to me it's always related to the people rather than to the place. The one big story we did have, this goes to Wilbur Smith, was one of the guys that worked in my father's office. My father worked in the same department as Wilbur Smith. He was a pilot. Wilbur Smith was a radio engineer. And so the guy, I went to talk to this Ernie Epp guy, and he told this story about this object that came down in northern Manitoba, that crashed in northern Manitoba. And they thought it was a U-2. But I remember my father telling me the story that the accident investigation guy went up, it was on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border, way up high. And they got the report that something had gone down there because they were picking it up on radar going down. And he went up there and he walked on the site, and the Americans were already there. All the Americans surrounded this thing. And then he says, "I'm from the Canadian government. I'm here to investigate this accident." And the Marine guy or whatever says, "Sir, we want you to leave." And he says, "I'm from Canada. I'm an inspector. You're on Canadian property. We have sovereignty on this land, and I'm going to investigate this crash." And then he said the guy stuck this rifle in his stomach and said, "Sir, I would advise you to turn around and leave." So he was just furious. He got on the phone. He phones Ottawa. This is back in 1959. He phones Ottawa, and then he says, "The Americans are here, and something's come down, and we've got our authorization to investigate this crash on the Canadian territory." And then they say, "Hang on." And they phoned him back 30 minutes later, and they said, maybe just let the Americans do what they want to do. My father said he came back to the office absolutely furious. He said, God damn Americans, they think they own everything. It's like my father said for years this guy was telling this story about how they, and I remember I told Paul Hellyer the story, and Paul Hellyer put it in one of his books. And it was this sort of idea that if they want to recover something, you're not getting in there. They know exactly how to do it. They were there before the Canadians were there to investigate. And this was up in the middle of nowhere. And I guess they knew it was one of their planes. Their U-2s coming down, and they surrounded the site or whatever. And the Canadians weren't even allowed on the territory. But so I've not really heard really any of this sort of stuff. Maybe Nicole, maybe you heard.
No, the rumors I'm hearing, it's like, it's kind of what you were alluding to. Like there might be this secret area up there, and like maybe it's a new landing spot or a new secret base or an underground base or some sort of sighting hotspot. But I don't know.
It would be easy to hide something there because all you have is Indian reservations up there. Once you get past Winnipeg, there's nothing. I mean, it's like totally desolate. I mean, there's even the stories
that maybe there's like a secret Canadian space program, something happening up there, since it is sort of this,
I can always see the Canadians as doing what they're told by the Americans, that they don't really have anything that's leading edge that's above the Americans. It's sort of like they're putting in their 2 cents or whatever. You even get up there, there's not even any trees. I mean, it's like totally desolate, and only people that are up there are the natives. And you have this, even though the one funny story is like there was a band that came from up there. I can't remember their jerry cans or they're a very famous band. They played all across Canada, and they came, and the one girl came down and she saw a tree for the first time, and she became crazy about trees. She could not be around trees because she'd never seen a tree before, and she had this psychological thing about trees. And that's the thing. There's no trees up there. There's nothing. It's just, and it's cold and it's desolate, and it's like, there's no roads, and there's like, it'd be easy to hide something up there, but the natives would probably find it though. I think I would have heard. I mean, if there had been a base or something, I've never.
Well, that is something like, I think Jacques Vallée has said it several times when he researches a case or a landing or an area, that it does inevitably take you all the way back to like first tribes or indigenous people in the area, and finding, their mythology and their stories and these overlapping crossovers, and even bringing up, like we were talking about channeling. So, the Canadians knew about channeling, that transferred, to the Americans, and Arthur Lundell obviously didn't think it was a big deal, like running the unofficial weird desk or the unacknowledged weird desk. So
I should finish that story. So this guy goes into the photographic section there, the advanced, or the whatever they do with the satellite photographs. Art Lundell sits him down, and there's actually a transcript. The Jacques Vallée gave me the transcript of this thing that was handwritten by off the CIA memo by Robert Friend. So they go in there and they say, sit down, let's talk to the alien. And so they ask all these questions, and the guy's doing this automatic writing. And is there a certain race that people prefer, a certain religion, or whatever? No, and all these questions, whatever. And Art Lundell's running this interview. And so then he says, oh, we'd like some proof. And then the guy goes from writing to talking. He says, what would you like? He said, we'd like you to show yourself. When? Now. Go to the window. And they go to the window. And I remember Bob Emenegger, it's in this UFO cover-up live. Robert Friend, the head of Blue Book, goes on camera and tells this story. And he's in the National Photographic Interpretation Center, and he's telling the story, and they're just about to rip the building down. So there's nothing in the room or whatever. And he goes to the window, and he looks out the window, and he says, and this flying saucer goes flying across the Capitol. And they all go, whoa. And they looked at the radar, and the radar had been blocked out or whatever. Then they brought the guy back. They flew Friend in from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. 2 days later, it's a big emergency meeting. Art Lundell, come here. We got to show you something. And then they go down and they put this guy, and the guy goes back into trance again. He's talking to AFA. And then he says, we'd like you to show yourself. And he said, no, time's not right. We're not going to show. And then, but friend said it was the most amazing thing he'd ever seen. The guy's Adam's apple was going up and down. He said, and he went to his commanding general at Wright Patterson Air Force Base. He said, "This Frances Swan is something. We should look into this woman." And he said, "Another agency has the case. Leave it alone. Get your hands off it." And then I remember Robert. They gave this. This was leaked to Bob Emenegger. Nobody would have heard of this story. But Art Lundahl goes and tells Bob Emenegger to put it in this documentary, this 1975 documentary. So Bob Emenegger says, "So Art," he says, can you come on camera and tell the story?" And he said, "No, I can't tell the story. I'm on duty." And he says, "What do you mean you're on duty?" He said, "I'm on duty. I'm not telling the story." So they put Robert Friend. But there's been these contacts like Tim Taylor, who's the NASA guy, who's he tells this very clear protocol of how he talks to the aliens, and they give him 40 patents and stuff like that. And he told me the whole deal that he had this contact and that he had this invention that they sold for $100 million on NASDAQ or whatever. And he said, the idea came to me when I woke up in the morning. He said, the last thing I remember the night before, this is Tim Taylor telling me this story. The last thing I remember the night before was a hooded figure standing at the end of the bed. I said, "Really? Could you see its face?" He said, "No, I couldn't see its face." So yeah, there's all sorts of people who are having these contacts, and that's what you want to do is you want to make contact, but then in some ways they can't, because that's what Chris Bledsoe said when Tim Taylor came, and then Chris Bledsoe said, "What do you do on my property? I got NRO guys, I got CIA people, I got NASA here." He said, "My kids are all threatened, and they're having trouble in school, and people are ridiculing them. What are you guys doing on my property?" And then Tim says, "Well, Chris," he says, "it appears they like you. They talking to you. They're here, Chris. They don't like us. They don't talk to us. So we're here to find out what they're telling you."
Well, and that statement there, like they don't talk to us, and that is the channeling communication or the telepathic communication, like who's in contact. And that shows you, like you just said, all the way from Swan, to Bledsoe. Like Bledsoe's in contact. We know, like,
and your friend, who's your friend? Yeah. Ron Pandolfi. His wife is an alien. He's said this a number of times. His wife's an alien.
Allegedly, maybe according to some stories that are out there by other people. Like,
he said it. He said it on.
Watch out, Grant. You can't call people my friend. That gets me in trouble. And then people make edited videos telling me I'm in a cult and all this fun stuff that comes with living on the edge. But
well, you're following the pattern that I use. Did you go to the people who may know what's going on? And that's, exactly. I give you credit for that.
And so what I think what I was wanting to ask though is, so we had Frances Swan back in the day and we have Bledsoe today. We know they're in contact. And you mentioned that Swan said, "Well, I can teach you how to do this." So how many people have been in contact with AFA? Was it just Swan, or did Swan teach somebody else and AFA then talk to them as well, like on the American side? Because that's what I kind of get. Like AFA wasn't like a one and done sort of being communication. Like that was continual. Like,
well, the CIA guy was in contact. Frances Swan was in contact. Wilbur, I asked his metallurgist guy, I said, "So how did Wilbur come in contact?" And they tell this really weird story. And Wilbur told the story. If you read his articles, you can see what he's talking about. So Wilbur was in contact, but he didn't have like direct. He was getting stuff where he put a piece of pad beside the bed, the same as Gary Nolan does. Puts a pad beside the bed, and then he'd wake up in the morning, there'd be something written all over the pad. And so the one morning they were working on this gravity control experiment where they had this thing moving at 18,000 revs a minute, and they had these ceramic magnets on this copper plate, and the metallurgist told me the story. We went in there Saturday morning. We go into the garage, and then Wilbur comes walking in. He says, "Shut the experiment down. We gotta guard the experiment." AFA said, "Guard the experiment." So they go, "Okay." And so they build this concrete wall around this thing.
Oh,
they turn it on, and the thing explodes. And there was ceramic wall magnets embedded into the wall. And Wilbur Smith said someone would have been seriously injured if we had gone with this experiment. So he was getting these indirect messages, telepathic. I remember they telling me the story of Mrs. Swan going. They were very close to the Ohio group. And there was one Ohio member told me that she came one time and she was sitting there with a yellow pad. and the lights were out. There was this light coming in from the street light, and she was doing automatic writing. She filled the entire pad. She was page, stuff like that. So it's sort of like once you get into the field, you sort of get infected by it. It sort of moves to other people, and more people get involved.
Wow. I like that. We had sort of, well, you know, Courtney kind of brought forward a whistleblower for this big X Spaces, you know, introduction to the community at large. And there was sort of a tag along, and these other agency people that are possibly coming out and telling their stories about being on the inside. And a lot of them have these download sort of channeling experiences that
And
they
that's
really
what
don't know how to place.
and that's what Ron said. Because we cannot control the phenomena, we watch those that the phenomena influences. Lights in the sky have limited use in knowledge. And
Right.
so that's what they're tapping into these people. In fact, Chris was one of the people who flew the craft. So I said to him, so did any of these big high level officials ask you how to fly the craft? He said, yeah, a U.S. Air Force general. I went into his office. I explained to him how to fly the craft. The same as they actually got, he was at the Pentagon. There was Pentagon people went to Chris Bledsoe, and they wanted to know what had the lady said. He repeated all the stuff that the lady had said, and they took it back to the Pentagon. And according to what I understand, they briefed Obama on this. And that's where he got the medal from. If you've seen the medal, he gave me he showed the medal, looked like an Olympic gold medal. I said, Chris, that's pretty cool. What did you get that for? I couldn't see what it was. It was a triangle with a space shuttle going up through this triangle. And then he said, I can't tell you what I got it for. I can just tell you where it came from. And then he's on his cell phone. He goes to the next picture, and there's a mailing envelope, Camp David. I went, whoa. Like, whoa.
It's sort of like, I guess, like a trust token, or like, you know, just like a proof of life, like validation that you were there and spoke and had a meeting, or that something important went down. And that's, I guess, what people seem to ask me often, and even on your behalf, or they want me to ask you, like, were people really interested in the ladies' specific messages? What is it with these messages? Is it always about like devices or downloads, or like these precognitive scenarios that may play out? Because, you know, they've heard about, you know, Chris Bledsoe maybe having these psychic abilities along with the healing, and you know, people kick up stories about the ladies and who encounters beings in this level. So what's your interpretation on that? Like, I know we throw in alien messages all the time, and it's love and oneness, and you know,
I can say that Chris said that was the most important thing, that when NASA found out that he had contact with a lady, he said that's when they got interested. And that's when they wanted to know, and people started to appear, that there's some connection. They know this connection to the lady. And it may be the divine feminine, this idea of oneness versus separation. We're in the male, ego, me versus you. And this is the oneness, the, unity of the divine feminine, of being family and working together and stuff like that. But he said that once they had this thing, and that's where he said that they actually got this briefing. He had to provide, I can't remember who's providing it, but it went to the Pentagon, that they wanted to know what exactly the lady said, as much detail as he could as to the predictions she had made, and what she was saying is going to happen and stuff like that. That they seemed to know who she was. They seemed to know that this goes back into time of Egypt and stuff like that. So he mentioned what it was. There was some in Egypt that was the same thing.
I think some of what I've kicked up, like along the lines of the divine feminine, and like these, I don't want to call them like true conspiracies, because they're not. Like, we know a lot of our founding fathers were Masons, you know, Freemasons, and they do follow this like higher being order. But there is like these instances where they link it back to Egyptian mythology, and even our country's founding. There was, I think, in one of George Washington's battles, there was the emergence of like this Native American woman, and she sort of gave this prophecy about what was to come of the United States, and gave George Washington this vision of different these after
Yeah,
the
Washington had
expansion.
that.
So I've just wondered if maybe that's sort of a line, like continuing with our secret government, in operation, like if they do really follow these sort of divine inspiration messages or something. But
That's where I say it's going to be. And when it comes right down to it, you're going to find out it's some non-physical thing that it goes back. It's like this idea of the spooky action at a distance. If a particle on the other side of the galaxy reacts instantaneously to another particle, it indicates that there may not be any time and space. That these are illusions. And it may be this whole thing. So then how big is the universe? Is the universe actually physical? Or is it this spiritual thing where it's all here and it's all creations of our mind that we are? This is this whole idea that all UFO crafts are different, all aliens are different, that you're part of the experience, that we're creating this stuff. It's like a dream that we like being inside the ship, that everybody's having this dream of flying the ship, but they're all have their individual things that they touch. And that's what I think, to me, the bottom line of this cover up is going to come down to is this is not going to be physical the way people think it is. Even the aliens, where you get, I just interviewed Sims about this. And he said when he saw the beings that he first saw, they didn't have any nipples, they didn't have any sex organs, and he immediately knew these couldn't be extraterrestrials from another planet. And so when you start asking Jacobs, when the people do the mind meld, where the aliens go right up close to the eyes and they look into the eyes and they read the mind, and then Jacobs always says to them, "Is he breathing?" And they go, "Nope, not breathing." And then you start to realize they don't breathe, they don't eat, they don't drink, they don't sleep, they don't have toilets on board the craft, they don't have sex organs, they don't have muscles, they have little legs, and the people wonder how they can stand up on these legs, they have no muscles. And you start wondering, what are we actually dealing with if they can go through walls and they don't breathe and they don't do all this kind of stuff? You start looking at it that it's going to be so much more complex than people think it is. I think it's going to end up being some sort of thing where Jim Semivan says there does not appear to be any there. This seems to be on the edges of consciousness and quantum physics. And I don't think I'll ever see the result. And this guy got the briefing. He said, "I know what the legacy programs are." And he says, "I know what legacy programs." And he said, "I don't think I'll ever in my lifetime see an answer to what this actually is." And that's the whole idea. They haven't got a clue what they've got. Bodies and crafts. Yeah. That doesn't mean that they're from Alpha Centauri unless they've got an Alpha Centauri driver's license, which I don't think they do. They don't have clothes. They don't have nothing.
They're running around. The aliens are always in trouble. We got 2.5 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Grant Cameron and Nicole Sakachar, I guess. Grant, as you were talking about the craft, where does biologics then fit in? Because I tend to believe these craft are more biological than they are just technical.
Yeah, it's the future of AI, but it's biological. So if you've ever interviewed Steve Mera, he said he worked on these bio boards many years ago, computer boards that are made out of biology. That you need a biological system that is able to think. So these things are biological. They can think. They're not the AI of mechanical stuff you can't have, but once you put biology into it, then it becomes conscious and it can think. So that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a conscious craft, but in terms of the craft, the whole bottom line is that it may all be mind stuff. That if you go back to the Michael Newton stuff, the light journey of souls, life between lives, all that kind of stuff, you see this whole idea that comes up in the UFO field all the time is that everything is made out of consciousness and we're creating it out of consciousness. Or as the first channeler in the New Age says, you manifest everything around you. There is no other rule. If that's true, everything's on the table. I mean, we haven't got a clue what's going on. If you're actually manifesting what's happening around you, that's very hard to conceive of. And that may be why they're covering it up, because they can't go there. If they may have some idea. That's what that Ron talks about, loons, crooks, and worse. If you're talking about technology and nuts and bolts, you're a loon, crook, or worse, because they talk about portals. They have this whole idea of portals, that it may not be what we think it is. All crafts may be different, and it's a mind thing. The whole thing is built on consciousness.
Nicole, your thoughts, 1 minute.
I'll add that I think there's an element when we're talking biologics that does cross over into our scientific endeavors in orbit and space. And Grant mentioned AI, like it is sort of this nanotechnology where you introduce like microbiology organisms, like actual biological organisms. And a lot of these things can only be formed in space. So I think that's sort of a tell, like these biological elements in nanotechnology that maybe, we are seeing like pieces of in crafts. So is that something that's biologically alive? Is it something that we're just seeing the beginnings of in our own technology? So now we can, recognize it in alleged alien craft? Maybe. But
And on that note, hold that thought. We're going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Grant Cameron, Nicole Sackage, my birthday show. We're having a lot of fun talking aliens, UFOs. We'll see where it goes after this on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned, everybody. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, we're clear.
Your little birthday snidbit with that, and Grant, you'll like this too. Your friend Tim Taylor from NASA, like he is kind of like the father of this definition of biologics and these things that are made in orbit. So he's kind of the dude that defined these things. So I wish he would come out and explain Grush's comments on what biologics are. That could get interesting. That would make disclosure fun.
But he won't, the same as Hal Puthoff. You know the story about Hal Puthoff, where the one researcher went and said, "Do you know the 12 guys who are probably running the show?" And he said, "Yeah, I could probably name them." And then he said, "Well, why don't you name them?" He said, "Because you'd go to the New York Times, they'd publish an article, I'd have to deny it, and nobody would ever talk to me again." So they're trying to figure it out as well. And so they keep quiet because they're trying to get the stuff from the guys above them, and they don't want to be seen as a leaker. Otherwise, people stop talking to them. So everybody's holding their little secrets, and nobody's talking about anything. And everybody's trying to get patents, and nothing doesn't go anywhere.
So that's like a little sneaky tidbit, though. So it's like you just very casually meet Mr. Taylor, and he has this interest, and you find out later like what his jobs are and what he's affiliated with, and you find out later that he also downloads or channels or has this connection, and we know he's a creative guy. Obviously, he's got that sort of magical brain, and he's also writes. I think he's creative in that sense. So he's got that right brain, left brain thing going on. And but then, so you hear maybe what he's sort of interested in by, falling in with Gary and Diana, and even you guys, him going out to the gifting field and, knowing the pieces and talking with Chris Bledsoe. And then you find out that he has ran sort of with these downloads of inspiration that he gets. And some of these things have ended up like on NASA projects and up in orbit in space. And to even further his awesomeness, he has crossed over into Elon Musk's SpaceX with this Dragon Crew program. So, his sort of influence in this, whether you want to call it woo or high strangeness, or, is that official because of his official capacity with NASA, or does he leak out information to people like you and Chris and,
He's gone silent. He doesn't talk to Chris anymore. He doesn't talk to Diane Pasolka anymore. I only talked to him twice. I talked to him once, and then I had that funny conversation with him when he was in Huntsville, where he phoned me or I phoned him or something like that. And that's when he said, you sort of realize this high level guy has all these secrets or whatever. And then his daughter, he says, my daughter tells me, Dad, can you quit talking about this? It's embarrassing, whatever. And then he says to her, just remember where Alexis came from.
Right. So, and in my head, that's also maybe around the same time frame where he knew he would not just be with NASA, but he would be transferring over to SpaceX and these sort of endeavors with Elon. So maybe he did have to zip his personal interest in the UFO community.
The time when I talked to him, there was no, that's why I've always used his name. There was no Tyler D. Don't use my name.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean. Like that was before that. Like he didn't even really announce to you when you met him
I
at
had
the
no idea who
gathering.
he was.
He
I had
wasn't
no
like,
idea.
I'm with NASA. Here's my, he
I
wasn't.
had no
Was he
idea. who he
wearing
was.
a ball cap and NASA?
I just knew
jacket?
that he had that he had the contact, and he put me in contact with this Connie, one of the two contacts, and he was following the contactees because it's the idea. He's trying to figure out what kind of impressions were they getting, what's happening, all this sort of stuff. And it wasn't until years later I suddenly realized who this guy was. I went, oh my goodness! And he told me about the jump room thing. He showed me those photographs from the jump room thing,
and that always excites me.
Yeah, I didn't even catch on then when he showed me the photographs. It wasn't until a couple of years later when I said, why did he show me those photographs? Why did he go to the building? If this is all garbage, this jump room thing, it's all nonsense. What's Tim Taylor doing at this building? He must have thought there must have been something to it, and then showed me the photographs. And as he did to Chris, he does the same thing. He doesn't tell you anything. He just said, hey, look at these photographs. What do you think?
Well, that's what a lot of them do. And that's what I mean, whether they're official or unofficial, it's almost like if you ask them something directly,
they won't.
They'll tell you a story, but then out of nowhere, they'll just be like, so what do you think of this? Or, it's just a total sidebar. So is that like a tell? Is that confusion? Is that the official leak? Is that just, show what they're interested in or what they're looking into? Because, I don't know. It does. It's a tell in some respects, but then in other ways, it's part of the mystery. Like,
and then he told stuff to Mark that he didn't tell me, and then I went back to Mark to try to get him to confirm it. And Mark knew he was in the box, and he didn't want to talk about it. Like this whole thing that hair and DNA is antenna. That's how we're picking up the signal. Through our DNA, and hair is also a signal that you can pick up signals and stuff like that. And that the NASA antennas are built like DNA, these deep space antennas.
That was interesting.
And that kind of stuff was really interesting, which indicates this guy knows some stuff that we don't really know what's going on. They figured a few things out.
Like the double helix spiral being used as antenna was one of Taylor's inspirations.
Or they know about this. They know this idea of making contact with, and he's in contact. I mean, he makes contact with her today.
All right, guys, 5 seconds. Thank you to all our super chatters. Very much appreciate the love and support tonight. Here we go. Here we go at the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight. The SOR Space Travelers Club. Bostrophodon. Bostrophodon is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as a clam. It's a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Grant Cameron, Nicole Sackett are here talking the UFO story. Why are we going this way? Well, it's my birthday show. I can do what I want. I really can. So I brought on my two favorite people to come say hello. Grant, thank you for being here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and thanks for bringing the Weird Desk on here with me. That's
oh yes,
that doesn't exist. It's never officially acknowledged. Like you can't talk about it, or you get shunned. It's kind of like what they call Fight Club. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you, though, Grant. Like Courtney brought forth her whistleblower friend, and there was sort of this attachment to him, and he worked for the agency or the company, whatever you want to call it, and sort of realized, and as he put it, was 20 feet away from the Weird Desk.
Sorry?
And went to that person and talked to them. And so, like had a one-on-one with the actual Weird Desk that wasn't acknowledged. Even then, he was pretty much told to zip it and not ask about it. So, you know, and people don't realize that it does go all the way back to Arthur Lundahl and probably before that in some capacity, or that there's more than one weird desk in other agencies. Don't you think? Or do you think it's just a CIA thing?
Well, they even claimed that it wasn't really a weird desk, that was just a nickname. But Kit said he only spent 10% of his time. And but that's the thing. There's so many, mirrors and false floors and stuff like that. Now we've got this new GM thing. Remember, we started getting this GM thing,
Yeah.
and the GM defense.
Look,
I mean,
yeah.
all these guys have got GM defense emails, and with this digging, we started going to people. Have you heard of this GM thing? And no. And then you had the one person you talked to, and they said they had worked on a titanium. I don't know if I sent you the email. A titanium alloy for the Corvette.
Right.
That's what. And then I heard after that there was on the 64 landing on one of the rocks there was titanium, and that Kit Green had taken this to GM where the other guy had been and had used GM resources to analyze this titanium that came off this rock where this UFO had landed in Socorro. And then you start seeing these things and going like, did we miss this story? It's like you start to realize there's all these back doors and all these companies, and they're all like the Walker, same thing. They all sit in different boards. They all have contacts with different people. There's so many doors you can't even figure out which way anything's going.
The tip off with GM was when we started digging in the emails, and then we knew Kit Green had a GM email or allegedly did. And then we found out that Ron Pandolfi also spent time with GM. And then you realize that John Alexander did as well. And so did Hal Puthoff. And so it's like, so even if you don't know what they were up to, like digging around with me. So you take this time frame and then you start digging into GM company, and everything they were.
And George Bush sat on the board of directors.
Right. And like all these little like ins and outs. And then that's what you find out. Like, and now that there's been some decades between these projects, you do kind of find out how cutting edge some of these projects within these corporations really were. They were talking about this special alloy, titanium alloy that was going into the engines of the new Corvettes. And I guess that's when GM had sort of bought out Corvette. So then you find out that, this titanium alloy is kind of special to the point where yes, Russians and Chinese and Germans and other countries, not governments, but other companies in these countries, it was like espionage happening. They wanted to know what this alloy was, what it could be used for, what its applications were. So there were these counterintelligence operations happening just over things like a developed alloy. So that's interesting to find out that some of our Cosmic Club players kind of have these links to GM as well, and what projects were they involved. We also hear some newer things with GM right now are these hydrogen batteries that some of their electric vehicles are going to use. And then you dig into certain people and you realize they've worked on hydrogen projects in their past and things like that. So you can dig up these little snidbits. I hope our pal, our new anonymous pal _ Grant, that's who messaged you and messaged Courtney and messaged me and messaged Melinda. He's on the right track. And I was trying to tell him keep digging, you're in the right area of this. But kick up these other avenues too. Because if a girl in the cornfield of Illinois can do it, you can too. But that's interesting. I like the GM lead, just like I like Northrop Grumman and Lockheed and Raytheon and
they'll have stuff hidden in all sorts of places. It's not going to be where you think it is. It's going to be hidden somewhere in some budget that you thought it was something else.
It's the ever expanding web. You even take it back to scaled composites and Burt Rattan and how that turns into TRW and TRW turns into Northrop and just those spinoffs. And then if you want to go ultra conspiratorial, since we are in, the UFO world, so we find out places like Northrop is under this Vanguard umbrella. And then you find out things like so is Palantir. Palantir has all these government contracts. And then the people with Palantir are who started Enigma, who now, want to look into UAPs and UFOs and gather data and put out solid information. And the web of the connecting dots can be endless sometimes when it comes to companies, even like GM, McDonnell Douglas, Boeing, all of them. They've mutated over the years and expanded, and they do a lot more than what you just think they do. Like Bell Laboratories, they do a lot more than just make telephones.
Yeah.
Well, very true.
Luna was asking the secretary of the DOE some pretty hard-hitting UAP questions today. I was proud of her.
But she's not going to be cleared for anything. That's the whole deal. Is like you got to go to people that are cleared. That's what they do, is they stick these people out there who don't know anything, and they honestly say, I don't think it's anything.
It was sort of the same deal when they had Moultrie up, with these first hearings, and they were hammering him with questions, and he got to play the I don't know game. Like that's how this DOE lady did. But Luna brought up, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories. That's a good one. They hide a lot of DOE projects and fund a lot of things like Battelle.
But it's a big place. I always tell the story. I always tell the story that I was a facility manager at the University of Manitoba, and I ran at one time 20 some buildings, and I had keys to the president's office, the 8 vice president's offices, payroll, and all the files on all the people in human resources. And you think, well, I'm a very powerful guy, but I didn't know anything. All I knew was my job. If I had known what was going on, I wouldn't have left 6 months before there was a major buyout and lost like piles of money. And it's like people think because you work at a university, you know everything. You know your little job, and it's the same as you're at Livermore. You have your little job, and you don't know what the guy next door is doing, let alone where they're hiding the flying saucer.
I like paying attention to that one because that's the one that's affiliated with our friend Jack Sarfati. When he does his little lectures and presentation, there's always like a byline of Lawrence Livermore Laboratories or Foundation, so there might be something happening there. If it's not directly related to UFOs, maybe it's related to time travel, and I'm okay with that because that brings us back to the jump room.
They had the Uri Geller thing. Like that's this whole idea that once you get into paranormal, it breaks off and all sorts of stuff starts happening. And Uri Geller was being tested there, and that's when the arm was floating around the room and stuff like that. And these guys were ready to quit. They were just terrified by the fact that all this paranormal stuff started happening at Livermore. And
I love that. That would be so wild. Like it would be scary. Like even when you tell the story, or we talk about Leslie Keene's article, when she visited the mediumship circle in the wax hands, like that would be freaky enough to know that like delicate wax, something solid forms that, or, what did she talk about in her article? Like she reached out and grabbed the hand and it felt.
That's what I asked her when I did the interview.
And warm and like
that's to me is the nature of reality. What's really going on? So when Leslie Kane, when we did the interview with her, I couldn't have cared less about UFOs. I just said, Leslie, did you actually see the hand? She said, yeah, I've seen it a couple times. Was it real? Did you actually touch it? Yeah. And it's like, tell me the story. And now the ectoplasm comes up on the table and it's moving around and this hand starts to form. And then she could feel the knuckles and the tendons and stuff like that. And it's warmer than a regular hand and it's soft like a little kid's hand or whatever. And then it bangs on the table and then it goes back into ectoplasm. And I'm going, wow, no, that's something. Right. That basically tells you, man, we haven't got a clue what's going on.
Well, and so people want to know how the little gray alien dudes with the eyes can like float through anything or take you through a ceiling or walk through walls or manifest out of nothing. Like, to me, that's the crossovers that need to be
Yeah. Or the thing
investigated.
where I talked to George Knapp tonight about, is it the same or is it different? Is everything independent? Like every leaf on a tree is different. Every snowflake is different. And I did the thing with the grays where people say, oh, the grays. And then you start comparing, and I take Betty Andreas's gray and I put it against Whitley Strieber's gray and say, do you think these look the same? They're not even close. Then you take Betty Andreas's gray, you take Ron Johnson's gray, and you start looking, and they're all completely different. They got round eyes and almond eyes. Some have got pupils, some don't have pupils, some have ridges on the head, and you start realizing that it maybe they're all different. You're just talking, and we're making all these assumptions about stuff that when you start looking, you start realizing, like, everybody touched something different on the craft. Or when Lukatsky said, I that was the most dramatic interview I've ever seen in my life, the one with Lukatsky, where he says, number one, 200,000 sightings, and it was like driving down the freeway in LA and every single car was different. That is revolutionary. If all UFO sightings are different, we got to rethink everything. And then the other thing he said was, we've got men in black. It's for real. And I've been saying this for years. The black helicopters, all that kind of stuff. How do they know when you're going to have a sighting? This is not the government. This is the phenomena. And he said it's reverse psychology. They're not trying to scare you away. They're trying to suck you in. It's like, what is going on? It's a black helicopter. There's some black guy standing at my door, some guy in black or whatever like that. And then the other thing he said was the thing what I talked about with the crafts, being on the craft, that there's consciousness connection. And he said, we've discovered that the phenomena is a combination of physical and psychic components. That is revolutionary, that the guy said, this is how it works.
I like that you brought up before too about when you did the Sky Pilots book and talking with everybody who claimed to have flown the craft. And you said there's so many different ways to connect with the craft.
They're all different. Yeah.
And even layered with some other like onboard experiences, like Preston Dennett has his book with all the cases of being on board crafts, and even talking with people like Dave. And what was, James Fox's films always somehow make me cry in moments, but then the other UFO film, Witness to Another World. And if you really dig into that case, and Valet talks about that, and his onboard experience of when he touches the wall or whatever barrier was actually inside the craft and when you hear him describe it outside of the movie and the few lectures he gave, it's almost like he could hear music when he touched the craft. And that may have helped him understand what was happening with the being and, helped put him at ease. And I've always liked that consciousness connection about how music can take you back to a safe spot or, bring out these emotions. And yeah, people don't realize that there are these differences about everybody's onboard experiences, but the touching and the lighting and
the weird stuff, like the guy that we're dealing with on this latest leak where they're leaking this material to this film producer, they're connected to the Senate Intelligence Committee, and the Senate Intelligence Committee, all the guys went through Danny Sheehan, interviewed all these people, and Danny Sheehan tells us a story about the craft, and we've heard this story lots of times. Len Stringfield had one from 1973 where the person goes inside, is 30 feet on the outside. It's the same as Chris Bledsoe. I said, Chris was actually bigger on the inside and outside. He said, yeah, it was 30 feet on the outside. And I went inside and it was huge. And I looked back outside and it was small. And he looked inside, it was huge. And it's there's no way we got this technology. That just shows you. Or we get Hansen in New Zealand, where she tells a story where the alien says, okay, things are going to get bigger. And she said the walls started to go out, and that they were so far out she couldn't see the walls anymore. And and the first woman that talked about flying the craft, I remember when she told me flying the craft, I thought, you're absolutely nuts, lady. I mean, come on. He's like, they should fly the craft. You're 70 years old. Come on. And then she told me the story. She said they can make the craft as big as they want. They've got crafts that are as big as the solar system. And I go, yeah, sure they do. And then when I heard this story about the craft being like Terry Lovelace, the size of a football stadium inside, and it's only 30 feet on the outside, you realize that they can make this thing as big as they want. And or the guy from Japan told me the story where he does it through out-of-body experience. And he says, I want to go see the Greys. And boom, he's on the ship and he's talking to the Grey, and the Grey puts his hand out and this book comes out of the wall, and he holds this book, and the wall was completely solid. And the book comes out of the wall. You see this kind of stuff and you realize This is going to be consciousness type stuff. This is not going to be physical. That we are in the spirit world, and we're dreaming that we're conscious, that we're in a physical world. This is going to turn out to be real. Or let me give you one other thing. I just read a book. I did the whole thing on consciousness. I missed one. There's a thing that talks about a book written on comas. I recommend everybody get this book. It's written by a guy by the name of Pierce, I think is his last name. It's on comas. People are put into induced comas in wards and stuff like that. And I remember my best friend's wife was in for 16 days. I remember her coming out and telling me this horror story about what happened when she was in the coma, having these horrid nightmares. Now, they've written a book about comas. And they talk about this thing where the woman was in this thing where she's getting killed raped for 60 years. She had 4 children during this experience. She was out for 16 days. Or people that come back and say they were gone for 100,000 years. And they said, different than near-death experience. Near-death experience, people will say it was more real than real world. The people in the coma say this was not hallucination. This was not my imagination. This actually happened to me. And people will say I was gone for 100,000 years. And that's what you see if you talk to the DMT people. They'll say they were gone for 1,000 years. They were gone for 2,500 years. When you start seeing that kind of stuff and believing these people are telling the truth, you start to realize the world is going to be pretty strange when you come down to it.
Well, and to segue this into kind of this current scandalous talk that has emerged with Jason Sands, are these programs that might not be just crash retrieval programs, but he was alluding to, and we all don't like to call it this 20 and back, sort of traveling to a different place or time, however you want to put it, living out a life there, or having, this year after year scenario at play, like the jump room or like the Sago speaks of, So Jason Sands has alluded that there is another program that he was sort of forced to be involved in, or was sort of maybe tricked to being involved in, and he didn't like it. So there is this element that's coming into play again too. Like, what is this other program? Does it really have something to do with this time perception management? Is it really, like you said, with the DMT experiences, you feel like you have a whole life, in the span of 4 hours, those sort of things. So I'm kind of fascinated. It might have something to do with these crowds, like, 10
minutes. I actually went back to Chase because I was starting to get this idea that everything is independent. So people talk about the elves. So I went to Chase, and he's got the database. Have you interviewed him yet, Chase Williams? With his database, 7 million people, 7 million items. I said,
paradox,
because he did the experiments with DMT. He's got a lot of experience. So I said, are all the elves different, or are they the same? I don't know, but I'll guarantee you they're going to be, the people are describing elves, but they're all going to look different. The same as all the beings are going to look different. All the crafts are going to look different. And that's the whole idea. You manifest what happens around you. There is no other rule. You have a dream scenario that you have. Like, my main dream that I always have is this failure dream, that I'm in university and I didn't go to 2 courses. And it's like the end of the tomorrow's the exam. I haven't been to a single course. I haven't read a single book. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to cheat on the exam. How I'm going to pass this thing. And then the next time is I'm failing French. Then I'm failing all 5 courses. And it's like the same dream, but it's different. It's a different course I'm failing and stuff like that. And that's this idea that we may be dreaming this whole thing. This idea of the simulated universe may actually be reality. This is how it actually works.
Well, hey, George Washington's dream was how America was going to expand across this continent. And, that dream he took very seriously. He said it was more real than real.
Yeah. And you get the whole idea where
if he didn't, that was the other scenario. So.
And if you start looking at the channelers, which I think are the most important, the ones that can channel and not make a mistake in a whole book, they change 2 words. They don't nothing like that. When you see them, they talk about this idea that you live all your lives at the same time. There is no time and space. It's all here now. You're living all your lives at the same time. And you look at that kind of stuff and you go like, if I was the government, I'd be covering this stuff up too. There's just no way you can come out and say, oh, guess what? This is just an illusion. This is all Maya. The Eastern Buddhists and Hindus were right. This is all just a dream.
Would you cover it up? would you cover it up or would you cloak it in secrecy and symbolism? Because just to go back to the lady, I'll tell you Canadians, that lady representation that spoke to George Washington, I think her statue actually sits on top of our Congress, the
There you
building.
go.
Yeah, there's a statue of her. Nobody knows what she is, but that's what she is.
Yeah, and then the idea where you get the delayed choice experiment that you can actually change things that happened in the past, and they've proved this in a lab. You can actually change things from the past, and that's the whole thing where people are coming from the future into here. You can actually go back and live a life in the past. That there's actually a woman from Columbia University who had a PhD in Columbia talked about the fact that she would get together with all her different lives and have a meeting. And they'd be in a boardroom, and it's like all her future lives and past lives, and then have meetings. And it's like, oh.
And these are the people who are educating our young and our youth. Wow. Spaced Out Radio continues. Greg Cameron, Nicole Sackett, we have until the top of the hour.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
What was
I'm
What was
on
my
this.
joke today? You have yourself, the me, you have your guide, and you have your higher self. And
Yeah.
your me self thinks it's the decider, or
Yeah.
and they're not. Your higher self and your guide might be the decider, and you're just the suggester.
Yeah. Or that thing with Jim Semivan where when James Ian Dolly interviews him, and then he says, "There's this being standing behind me," and he had this guardian type thing going on about him. And I went, "James, was it on the right or the left?" Because this is like spirit guide, and you start going like, is this really aliens, or is this spirit guides dressing up like aliens? And that's where I start to ask these questions as to what's really going on here. What are you experiencing? And is this are they pretending to be aliens or
Was it Walter? Was it our friend Walter? And it would have been probably 4 more years ago now. Was he the one that told us the story about
Oh, yeah.
the sitting circle? And they had these normal spirits or entities or beings that would come through to them and talk to them regularly in this circle. But then they started having the ET that came through, the gray that was coming through. And did he say it was a deceased ET, or did he say it was just the ET being able to come through and communicate with them? Like, hey guys, like I didn't know you could do this.
That wasn't that the skull thing where the blue being started coming through is a blue alien.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was a gray or if they knew it was, and they knew it was a ET or an alien. And we had all these questions of, can like ETs speak to the spirit world, like that sort of thing. Like, and apparently we got our answer.
But that is for sure, because that's Ron Johnson's famous story where he tells me the story where Elby, his being, takes him to the spirit world and he's with his mother, and he says, "Oh, there's this temple, this Mormon, he's a Mormon guy, he's a Mormon temple." And my mother says, "Ron, when you die, you're going to get a room in this building." And then he says, and then I go inside the building, Grant, he says, "It's like 100 times the size inside as was outside." And I go, what are you talking about? Are you in a UFO or are you in the spirit world? And this is the whole deal, is it's the same thing. And you start realizing there's these crossovers between these two phenomena. It's exactly the same description. That's bigger on the inside than is outside.
It was my elderly gentleman friend here in Illinois he was a lifelong experiencer, but he didn't remember his childhood experiences until he was a little more grown. But what he recalled was and his craft always came to his backyard and was actually like a tree would light up and the craft would be there and this ramp would come down. Well, what would come down off the ramp was actually his father for the first time.
Yeah.
And his father had passed away, but his father had introduced them like, you're going to experience this over and over again. This is safe. This is what you're supposed to happen. So that was kind of my first like, whoa, there's,
it happens often.
Kind of tied into that movie Contact, which Sagan wrote about, like that entity where she finally goes through her wormhole. Like it appears to her as her dad to, so she wouldn't freak out.
And
So,
then you got to question whether they stuck that in the movie.
right.
Is it indirect? That's what they're doing. They're doing that
Yep.
gradual drip
Part
thing,
of that leaking.
fictionalize
So
it.
that's what I wanted. Those movies you always drip drop, and we talk about like UFOs that has begun, and Emma Eggers one that he was supposed to do later, and even UFO Live 88. Like,
Yeah.
there were so many government people attached to those movies that, I mean, how could you say it's just a loose interest or whatever? Are they really leaking like real things that they hear?
Well, both
or
those
study?
major programs, the 75 and the 88 one, were both done by Gray Advertising. And Linda Howe says categorically it's a front company for the CIA.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, not only just like, hey, let me, tell this director a story like Steven Spielberg picked Valet's brain, or whatever. This was like, a whole like production company, like, here's your financing, make this movie, go talk to these people here at this base. Like,
Yeah, I was even telling
Emmenegger got
Michael
like
about that.
access, didn't he, to like even odd place, like he was allowed to film on the base, like
You could
B-roll,
do anything, yeah.
like.
And then I told Michael the story that because Michael's looking for financing for this aviary documentary, and then I told him the story about Bob Emmenegger. Bob, this is 1975, so Bob says they came to him and they said John MacArthur from the MacArthur Foundation financed the documentary, $250,000, and they said Mr. MacArthur had told us he'd rather his friends not know that he backed this thing. Could you please take his name off the credits, but you can keep the money.
All right, hold on right there, guys, because we're going to get going right now. And thank you to our super chatters tonight and all our new subscribers. Here we go with the final half of the show. Final half hour of Dave's birthday show is now underway. I'm Dave. I'm the birthday boy. Call me Dave, Area 51. Since I'm 51 years old as of tonight. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go with Grant Cameron, Nicole Sackage. We have until the top of the hour. And Grant, I want to ask you about whistleblowers here. A lot of people are putting a lot of stock in whistleblowers. A lot of people are wondering if David Grush is telling the truth, Jason Sands, and many others who are talking behind the scenes, even Lou Elizondo. Are these people that we can hang our hat on, in your opinion, to try and lead us to the promised land?
I'm always suspicious of whistleblowers because if you interviewed Elizondo and you'd see he would talk and then he'd say, "Oh, I can't answer that. I got to watch out for my security oaths." So that means he's got a non-disclosure agreement and somebody's watching him. This is the thing that they may be given certain things that they're allowed to talk about. But the ultimate story, I think, is going to be guys that can't talk. Whistleblowers, I'm always suspicious that they've been put out on purpose. Like the question I would say to every whistleblower is, why are you not in jail? I mean, if you're leaking classified material, you go to jail. I mean, that's how it works. I mean, how do you get to walk around and tell us all the secrets of what's going on? To me, it's always is suspicious as to why they're there and what they're saying.
Do you think that's the use of whistleblower being used wrong or loosely at play, or like the lingo involved with that? Like, we call these people whistleblowers, but if they fit the true definition, it's like you said, they would be arrested or in jail or violating. Because I always thought to be an actual whistleblower, you had to still be in that job capacity.
Yeah, so a lot of these guys are retired. So that's the big thing where I say, when Mellon says that there is no drip, I say absolutely there's a drip, because DeLong was talking to officials. He was not talking to people who are retired. So a lot of the people you say, Richard Doty, Hal Putoff, Lou Elizondo, Mellon, none of these guys are connected to the government. Jim Semivan. So they can say kind of stuff, and it's sort of unofficial. It doesn't really matter. It's when you get somebody official on the record who starts talking, and that I don't think you get. So a lot of these guys will be retired, and it doesn't really mean that much. They may have some information, but the ultimate information, I think, is going to be sealed off, that they would shut you down immediately. And that's what, when Grush came forward, Ron Pandolfi said, as soon as Grush came forward, I don't know, it was Dan asked him or somebody said, and he said, I'll bet you a cup of tea, a year from now, this guy will be totally disregarded. The reason they're allowing him to talk is because he's not saying anything that's official. They don't give a shit what he says, because he's out there saying this stuff, and they're allowing him to say it because it's like disinformation stuff. It's not real stuff. That and that makes sense.
And wouldn't that, instead of being called a whistleblower, like they should probably be called more of like an informant, you know?
Yeah,
They're
or someone who had a
informing on the
relation to the program.
situation,
It's not
they're
that
not really
they're totally out of it. They knew something about the program. That's the problem you've got, is nobody's got firsthand information. They're all telling stories. Same as I heard the stories about, the general who touched the craft. And I heard this like 20 years ago. And Eric Davis was telling me all sorts of stuff, of stories of people that he was talking to and stuff like that. But it's sort of like these indirect, they're hearing stories. When you get to who is the actual guy, is he going to come forward? No, we don't know who he is and stuff like that. It's always this unofficial stuff. Or you get, the way it would work is the way it worked with Eric Davis and the general, where when you get a classified level, he could talk about, okay, I tried to find the program. Okay, that's not classified. I got stopped, and lawyers told me to get lost. They hung up the phone on me. And then when he gets to something about the names and stuff like that or something, and then he says, core secret. Can't say. Core secret. He keeps going that core secret thing. So he knows where the line with disclosure is, and what you can talk about, what you can't talk about. And they're all on the hook where you're going to lose your security clearance. I remember when the whole thing came out with Eric Davis, where he said he got in trouble, and they called this intelligence blowback. So if you say something by accident, you're working on a program, you actually said something by accident, it's what they call intelligence blowback. You sit there and you wait because you said something you shouldn't have said. Are you going to lose your security clearance? Because if you lose your security clearance, you haven't got a job. You game over if they pull your security clearance, or if they fire you, or if they throw you in jail. So that's what they're all worried about, is saying something that crosses over that line.
Well, and speaking of that line, so it's like because I'm not afraid to talk about gossip and rumors. So there's this rumor that maybe Lou isn't being as transparent as he is about what he knows about disclosure, because he may have a lingering position that could come up, whether it's in Space Force or if Trump gets elected. We've heard about him, maybe having this insider job with Space Force for a couple years now, or does he still have it? Does he not? But how does that play out? Like, if you've come out as a whistleblower, and like we've just seen this with Grush, like he's actually lost his clearances to the point where they can't get him back in a skiff. Like, how could like Elizondo or Grush or any of these other people, like David Sands, who's come forward, whoever's going to come forward in the Fox films, or with Leslie Keane or whoever, Greer, like how could they ever expect to then turn around and have these high level jobs where they could maintain their clearances? Or why would somebody want to have them in a program where they would turn around and blow whistles or, shine a light on these things? So that's a confusing thing. I don't really understand.
Well, Lukatsky sort of explained how I understand it works. So when Lukatsky said, we've been inside, we've got a craft, and he said there was a senator in the room in 2011. That would have been Reed. You would have had somebody, it would be someone in the Gang of Eight. So it was Reed, and he talked about this thing. We've been inside a craft. We've got a craft, and we've been inside it. And then you remember if the interview, then Corbell started asking him, so what was it like inside the craft? And he said, I can't talk about that. I have to write it down and get approval for it. maybe I could do that in the future. And that's the whole thing. So they know where they can, Lakatsky knew where the line was. Been inside the craft. I can't go anywhere past that. And then he sort of said, when Corbell kept asking him questions, he actually says, he said something very unique. He said, if you knew that, he's talking about inside the craft, if you knew that, the rest of the story would be primitive. That was really significant. The rest of the story be primitive. You knew what was inside the craft. And that's where I'm saying that this whole idea where Danny Sheehan's talking about this guy, the craft was huge on the inside. It's this kind of stuff where you're just not even going to believe what's possible in terms of what they've got. And that even the craft on the ground, the thing's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, and you've brought up Lakatsky and, OSAP and Harry Reid. We know his links to Bigelow. And honestly, that's his interview that he did with your pal, Jeffrey Mishlove, where he talks about why he left Skinwalker Ranch or wanted to move on and sell it. And it's like his tell to me was he talked about facilitating communication with the phenomenon.
Yeah.
It was all about how to better this interaction and if you could do good, and if it was continuing in that spirit of how can it communicate with you or the ranch or it. And it's a tell that he has moved on to BICS now, the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies. And to me, that is kind of like the tell for what they know on the inside, or that vein that they're exploring. This isn't maybe necessarily going to give us all the answers to everything we want to know about extraterrestrial life, but there's something about these crafts and communication and consciousness and something further with that. So, that's where the mystery is. And how is our government going to announce that and, say that it's alien, or a whistleblower can come out and say what it is? Like,
If the government knows, there may not be anybody in the government that has a clearance except for the president to get it. It's in these stovepipe black ops thing, or where this general says to Tom DeLonge, he says, can you give me material? And he said, okay, fly. He said, but what you may find when you get there is a bunch of guys in suits standing around in the dark around an elephant. And there's this whole idea. They may not really know this as well. But if you go back to the OSAP program, if you're talking about the classified material, we know OSAP did the program and that they were doing the how do you put bulls inside the trailer and how do you rip the camera down, all this from the Slide 9 stuff, this technology stuff. But they put out 105 reports and not one single page from any of those 500 reports is made public. So we know they did the study and stuff like that. But the classified material, that's where I'm always suspicious of people who say, oh, I was in the program, or they say I've got a level 29 levels above the president of the United States. Well, I know that's BS to start with, because the president of the United States is the funder of, he's the core of all secrecy. The president doesn't have a security clearance. The president doesn't need a security clearance. He can see whatever he wants. He just can demand it. That he doesn't have a security clearance. So you can't have a security clearance that's higher than the president. And the president gives out all the security clearances, so he's controlling it. But in terms of the government, there may not be any in the government that has that level of security clearance in order to know. Because what I understand is the Gang of Eight is told about the programs, but they're not told any details. They just say, there's a program, we can't give you any details on it. Other than that, if you're not the Gang of Eight, who cares who you think you are, some congressman or senator? You don't have a clearance. And if they do, that's what they nail you in getting you the sheep to go in the skiff and get you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Now they've shut you up because you can't talk or you're under a non-disclosure agreement, and they don't tell you anything anyway. They know how to play this game. They know how to protect the secrets, because the bottom line is that this is the most highly classified secret, and that the existence of the program is top secret. They are not giving it out unless you got a security clearance that's going to cover it. And there's nobody with a security clearance, so nobody needs to know. As Walker said, just go away and study something else. You're never going to get the answer.
That's why I think it's in the Department of Energy. It's in the DOE.
Well, I think it would be in all different programs, because that's the whole thing with all these programs like OSAP and ATIP is these new programs come on, and there's probably 50 different programs, but there's one big program. And
Mhm.
once it runs up against the big program, they shut the little program
Right.
down. That they start us up and they think we're investigating UFOs. We're the first UFO program, and then they suddenly realize, like, no, we're just the little kid on the block, and they shut you down and close you up because you're getting in the way of the people who actually control the secrets.
What
Right.
about previous whistleblowers, whether it's Dan Burrish or Phil Schneider? I mean, it may be going a little bit more conspiratorial there. David Adair, even Bob Lazar. We've had a number of them come out. You know, why do we tend to believe them a little bit more than we believe these newbies, Grant?
I can tell you the Bob Lazar because I wrote that up, and George Knapp agreed with my conclusion. So did John Lear, and that was the fact that most people don't realize Bob Lazar was only on the Area 51, the Dave Area 51 site. He was only on there 5 or 6 times. People think he was there all the time. That's why this W2 thing was only $800. He wasn't on the base. That's why he took John Lear and Huff and all these guys out to show him the test, because he was so frustrated. He couldn't get. They wouldn't let him back on the base. He's just a part-time guy. And so they basically put him in there. The second day he was there, when he was in the interview, the second interview at EG&G, there's 3 interviews. The first question in the second interview was, what's your relationship to John Lear and what do you think about him? So before they went on the base, they knew that he knew John Lear, and John Lear was this crazy guy who was talking about underground bases and shootouts and stuff like that. So they put Lazar on because he had a bad background. He was claiming he had these degrees that he didn't have. They knew he would blow up. As soon as this story became public, he would blow up. So they gave him the story. They took him on the base about 6 times. The second day he was on the base, they gave him 125 documents to read. If you're second day on a highly classified program where you're not even allowed to talk to the guy sitting across the table from you, they're not going to give you 125 documents to tell you how the program works. They were feeding him material, and what he did is the first time when he was inside the craft, he went back to John Lear. John Lear told me the story. He says, Lazar comes in. He says, I was on the base and it's real. He said, what do you mean? They got the crafts? Yeah. Are they theirs or ours? He said, they're theirs. And he said, what are you doing in my house? Get out of my house. You know, they're going to have the house tapped. They're going to be listening to you, everything. Go back on the base, sit there for 6 months, then come back and tell me what's going on. And they knew. So John Lear, from December of 1988 till May of 1989, John Lear was running around telling the story. Oh, we got Area 51. We got crafts at Area 51. And everybody went, yeah, it's John Lear. Don't listen to John Lear. John is crazy. And it was because Bob Lazar, they didn't have a guest for one show. Knapp was missing a guest on one show, and he said, you know, you got that guy up at Area 51 says he's working on flying saucers. I need a guest for tonight. Bring him in. And they bring him in, and they backlight him as Dennis. And that's when the story goes viral around the world. Suddenly, everybody's on the story, because now it's not crazy John Lear telling the story. Now it's George Knapp, Emmy award-winning guy, is telling the story, and it got out of control, and they had to get more of the base back because people were going up into the mountains and looking down on the base and stuff like that. The story went viral, and they couldn't control the story. They managed to get it back under control, but that's what they do. They'll give somebody material to put it out, to leak it, and even Nicole's had examples of this. I've had stuff where people who have clearances are telling us stuff, and you don't know whether to believe them or not, and they want you to put the stuff out. You don't know what's real, what's raw, and that's what they're doing. They're gradually leaking this story out, and they control the whole story because you haven't got all the pieces. You've just got a little piece, and you grab your piece, or you keep it secret, or you run around with it, and they control they know how all the pieces are put together, and there's only maybe a handful of people who know how all the pieces are put together.
Yeah.
4.5 minutes, Nicole. Let's get your response.
I tend to agree with what Grant just said. I do think there are these snidbits and the games afoot about who wants what out and why. I think maybe an indicator with our current disclosure are these snidbits, like Hal Puthoff said at Soul Foundation in his like sidebar chat. There are, and even Richard Doty kind of echoes this as well. And we know they're all affiliated under these Aviary or Cosmic Club or Invisible College or UFO Working Group, whatever you want to call it. So when they talk about knowing about patents and this possibility of emerging tech, if it's in, science and technology or medicine or, that was also echoed by Lou Elizondo, in our Canadian chats and other podcasts and interviews that he's given. about being able to bring forth this technology or these patents or things that can benefit us here in the now. These things don't necessarily have to stay ultra top secret, you know, in that respect. So I hope that snidbit of disclosure might actually still happen. You know, I don't think we're going to get the announcement of, hey, we're not alone, explain the biologics, wheel out the craft. But maybe these inspirations that we can get from brilliant minds like Tim Taylor, or, you know, back in the day, it was Joe Firmage, might have been an inspiration for what could, you know, a possibility, or what they even gleaned from Bledsoe and his experiences and what he brings to the table. So is it this emerging tech? Are we going to really see something that's beneficial in that vein? Is it really tied back to like the Corso days of them farming out, you know, crash retrievals and what they can reverse engineer? Like, let's see it. I think that'll be heavy hitting if we can get even a snidbit of something like that.
That's your job, Nicole. That's your job, is to go after these high level guys. Remember, I asked the question of Doty in that interview when we did that interview with him. I said, the big question in ufology is not what are UFOs, it's what the hell's Ron Pandolfi doing? He will answer anybody. I mean, this guy supposedly ran the weird desk, and why is he talking to people? Right? Dan Smith reported him to the inspector general and saying, this guy's in the CIA and he's talking to people about UFOs. They're not supposed to be talking about UFOs. UFOs don't exist. And they did $100,000 investigation and came up to the conclusion, whatever Ron Pandolfi's doing is part of his job. And you got to wonder, like, why is he talking to people? Why are they putting this stuff out?
He protects endangered species with drone technology.
Officially.
I think it's amazing. Like, no, like, you know, that's a serious thing. And not just Ron, but you dig into some other of these cosmic club players and you find out they are attached to some very interesting foundations that, you know, protect wildlife or are interested in, you know, the cultural arts. And, you know,
I agree.
Christopher Mellon's foundation just made a huge, like, multi-million donation, I think, to UAP studies and research.
They're all trying to save the world. There's no doubt about that. It's not like there's bad guys. I don't believe there's really bad guys. Everybody thinks they're saving the world.
Right.
Or saving
like Brandon Fugel. Brandon Fugel's pursuit is to like bring enlightenment to maybe like this mystery between, you know, I think Bigelow falls in this category too. Like, what is this mystery of the UFO phenomenon and life after death and consciousness? And, you know,
it's your experience. Like Bigelow had his son die and then his grandson die. So, and his wife died. And so he's very interested in that phenomena, and good for him for putting the money in. And there's just not much money. Everybody's after the money from the $900 billion defense budget, which nobody's going to shut down. Don't ever get the idea that they're going to shut down that. The people who've got the money, when you're a billionaire, the next thing you want to do is be 2 billionaires. Every general wants to be a 2-star general, a 3-star general. They just want more and more and more, and they control the situation. And there's not a chance they're going to release it. Not a chance.
And on that note, we say thank you, Grant and Nicole, for a great birthday show. And hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
It is officially over.
It is. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night.
Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. And soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Rock and roll, people.
Portals and jump rooms.
It's all about portals and jump rooms. Never about the aliens anymore. It's all portals and jump rooms.
No, portals and jump rooms. Honestly, I think like we were talking about, the give is the phenomenon isn't in contact with everybody. So they seek out experiencers, whether it's they're in contact with the beings or they channel or they're, these brainiacs that are gifted with these downloads of technology and inspiration. And, our government has always kind of scooped up these people. That's, not just UFO related people, but one that comes to mind is like Sarfati. He was scooped up really early into these CIA think tanks. And, there's been others along the way, and it makes me question, our new friend, Mr. Pandolfi. How old was he when he kind of got scooped up into this world? Because he was sort of, in my understanding, he was sort of one of these younger, new kids on the block, hot shot, level scientist people that get introduced into this world. Joe Firmage, I think his IQ was so high and everything he accomplished in his young life, he was considered an asset to our country. The same reason we let Elon Musk become a citizen, So I wonder how many Bledsoes are out there like that. They're considered assets to, these agencies or our government, or just as, corporate assets of what they could do with their brains and added to our economy,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I hate to cut this
Muted.
short.
Grant's muted.
Oh, is he? Oh, sorry. Let me get that there.
No, you got just the last point, and then I'm going to take off. You got to listen to Neil Donald Walsh, who's a big channeler. He said, God talks to everybody. Only certain people are listening. And that's what they know. Certain people can hear. They're interested in those people. How are they picking up the message? Some people can pick up the message. Some people can't.
So Grant, the parting note is, we find out all these people that come out in the UFO community, like Gary Nolan's an experiencer, we're alluding that Lou Elizondo with his book, he might be more of like a witness or an experiencer. Do you think people like Kit Green and Ron Pandolfi, from being around the phenomenon, do you think they've had their own experiencers or experiences like the hitchhiker effect?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Kit talks about it. I don't know about Ron, but Ron, how does Ron actually getting engaged to some woman who's an alien who was handed off by President Reagan in 1983 to her when she's 5 years old?
There's mythology surrounding all of that, so that's hard to unpack. But no, I mean, even, just not him, but I think all of these people maybe have their genius experiences or something that kind of
that's how it works.
makes them
Kim Semigan's all upset because he had the experience. They didn't ask permission. Well, get ready, because if you hadn't had the experience, you wouldn't have been the guy to go to the New York Times and break the story. And everybody's an experiencer. All these people, Hal Puthoff's son's an experiencer, Nolan's an experiencer. They're all got something that drove them, because it creates awe and curiosity. If there's no awe and curiosity, you're not going to investigate. These people are all down the rabbit hole, same as you and I.
Ta-da! We're all living, right?
Let Dave go to bed.
All right. Happy birthday, Dave.
I got to race to the bar and
you're gonna go drinking.
My daughter. So
be safe. Take an Uber. Uber, Cabot.
You know where I live? I got a better chance of catching a moose on a ride home than I do an Uber.
Ride the mystical moose. You got this. Grant,
Right.
always wonderful to see you. We'll talk soon.
Happy birthday.
Much love. Thank you very much for making my night special.
Okay.
Bye, space travelers.
All right. Bye, Nicole Sackich.
Happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Own the bar.
I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Watch out for those, hissing cobra geese.
Chickens?
Cobra
Cana-
chickens.
You mean the Canadian Air Force?
Yes. Good night, my friend. Happy
Good night.
birthday.
Take care. Much love. All right. Big thank you tonight to Thomas W. Decker with a hat trick, Chill Farm, Lala, Marty, Aloha Dave, Pixie Lara, Mama Catherine, Big Dog, Flat Six, Stacy, _ Maddie, JSCO, Logan, Marv, Kira, Louie, Von Patrick, Android, Dry Toast, Joan, Gailey, Pix, Jeff Worsley, Cat Chaser, Gary, and AA Ron for the great super chats. Thank you very much for the love. Tets, hello. I want to quickly say hello to people who came in late. GW, Fast Hemi, PRM Productions, Moody Mongol, Gary Reed, you came in late, so we'll say hello to you again. And I believe there might be Pinzer No Flactum, Wee Runa, and Luminara Bite. Welcome to SOR chat. Don't forget, if you're new, hit subscribe, ring that bell, because we love having you here. That's why we do this 7 days a week. Sweet Robbie G is in the hot seat on the weekend. Jessica Jones on Sunday. And I am out of here. I'm going for a beer. Good night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.